How we doing today?
You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Good morning, and thank you for joining us this morning for our city council meeting. We'll go ahead and get started. Connie, could you please call the roll?
Here.
Laura? Here.
Here.
Nichols?
Here.
Paulson?
Here.
Black?
Here. Thank you. We'll move on to agenda item number 2 is fiscal year 2026 budget development overview. Gene Hill, Financial Officer, CFO, will give a brief overview of budget development items to create the city's fiscal year 2026 budget.
Good morning, Council, Mayor, Gene Hill, Finance Department. And I've also got with me Chantel, our new budget manager, who's in the Finance Department as well. So with that, we'll get started. For the agenda, just want to quickly go over the global United States, Idaho, and Pocatello. And this is kind of a best practice going over the economy that is put out by the GFOA, and also AIC recommends that we go over this just so people kind of have a basis of where we're kind of where we're looking. Go over the revenues and then the fee income or changes to fees. So if you look real quick at the global economy, global GDP is projected around 3.2%. Inflation is easing and kind of in the disflation stages. There's still a lot of geopolitical tensions. U.S. national debt for the U.S. is approaching $45 trillion by 2030. Interest is about $1.4 trillion, and the U.S. no longer has a AAA rating. If you look at the U.S. economy, again, their growth is expected to be about 1.7. Core PCE is about 2.8. It was actually came in for April this morning at 2.3. So again, we see that disflation where we're not into, it's just the increase is decreasing. The increase is growing at a decreasing rate. Again, then there's the cost. Go ahead.
Just a minute. Councilmember Cheatham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Gene, could you tell me what PCE is? That's an acronym I'm not familiar with.
It's the personal consumption expenditures.
Thank you.
It's a more conservative look than the CIP or the PPI.
Thank you.
I just want to show you this. This is a slide that marks the volatility in the market. It's basically the Chicago Board of Mercantile. And you'll see it in the housing crisis in 2009. It kind of had its craziness there. And then in COVID, and then in the tariff side, again, not trying to be partisan or anything like that. Anytime it goes above 30, that is where people get nervous. And when it stays in that 12 to 18, it's kind of a calm. When I looked last night, it was about 18. Just pointing out that the market is in a very volatile state right now. So we just have to kind of watch that. The Idaho economy, unemployment is 3.7 as of February. Labor force participation is raising. Tech and healthcare sectors are growing. Micron and Boise. State revenues are forecasted to be strong through 2029. And that may be a misnomer because I guess there's some new stuff that Rick gave me this morning off the press that's saying that's not necessarily the case, that it's actually revenues are down. Pocatello job postings are up 6%. Healthcare and manufacturing key sectors. Idaho State University influences the labor and housing and affordable housing and moderate living costs. Where can we go? Idaho is still one of the fastest growing economies statewide in the U.S. So there's new manufacturing, increase in real wages. It's a diversified tax base, diversified revenue streams. We've got a world-class leader in the cybersecurity here in Pocatello at the university. And also in the SNR, we've got INL that kind of help make that. U.S. technology, again, trying to lead the way in AI, robotics, space exploration, and science. Just in summary, we're looking at a kind of a stabilized growth with geopolitical headwinds. U.S. experienced slower growth, but the inflation's improving. There should be quite a bit of job expansion. Pocatello region is still resilient in the education and the healthcare. Any questions?
Rick?
Sorry, I can't see over that screen.
That's all right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any crystal ball forecasts of what Pocatello and Bannock County can do to sustain the headwinds we're going to be facing in the next few years?
Somehow we have got to diversify our revenue source as a community and a county. Move from traditional things. We just got to work on that. But I don't have any crystal ball into where it will go. So,
Thank you.
yes, sir.
Okay, we're moving to agenda item number 3. Looks like fiscal year 2026 revenue forecast.
Yes, sir. I just want to show one quick thing. Just kind of. Let me see if I can get this come up. We were at the tax, state tax department gave us this slide that we were at on Wednesday. And they're just trying to show how the legislation for state property tax was pretty consistent up to 2021. And then after that, it's got increasingly complex. So timelines have shrunk, it's just more complex. I just wanted to show that, just so that, I think Rick understands this, but I wanted to see everybody else could see this, and then we'll jump into the revenues here.
Only a few bill numbers I remember from the legislator, but 389, 292, 521, and now 40 are the ones that stick out in my
The ones that
mind.
stick out, yeah. They're the ones that make it harder and harder for cities to
Yeah.
function. So,
Okay, jumping into revenues. If we look at the total maximum property tax, the 3% we can take, that's based off of this year, 34 million, which is what the maximum property tax that this city collected last year, which is approximately $1,023,000. So on the general fund, you'll see in the budget date, going down column M, we expect the property taxes for the general fund to be approximately 25.5 million. New construction, about 300,000. Annexation 10, personal property replacement, please stop me if you have questions, is 351,000. If we take the foregone, I know that's just I put it in the budget, that's an additional 351% or
that's
1,000.
1%.
1%.
That's the 1% O&M.
That's the 1% on the O&E. M and, if I get it right, O and M. Sales tax, based on the AIC, is projected to be 6.4 million this year. State liquor tax is down, but it's projected to be 686,000. The electrical and the natural gas, or the utility bills, based on the judgment that was handed down for fiscal year 26, they're expected to be flat or down quite a bit, because we have to, hold to that judgment, and so those prices are down. And then in fiscal year 27, we'll see where it goes to based on the meter, based on usage, is what the utilities will be taxed on. So we'll see where that goes. But 500,000, 350, which is down about 200 grand. Cable franchise fees are down. On the interest income, everything that I can read or find on the yield curve is that we'll be between 3.5 and 4 million. The mayor and I talked about this. We could probably go up to 3.75 and pick up another 250,000 and be comfortable with that, just so you know that that's some upside for us. Interest on the delinquent homes, 208,000, and then the building permits at 975,000. And just to quick, so the question clarify, the school, there's a lot of building permits that came in on the rebuilding of the school. Most of those fees are coming in fiscal year 25. They'll not come in 26. So we think that this is a conservative number, but something that can work. Again, the magistrate courts and stuff, just on an average, other grants and fees, it's kind of just an average. And then other revenue sources is just a collection of all the little fees from police, from finance, and everywhere like that, that adds up to this 3.5 million. And so we're year over year looking at just revenues. We're going to be at about $500,000 increase this year.
With, I just might add, with the 250,000 $250,000 added at that, with the interest, where we think we can go up to about 3.75.
Right,
Will put us about 600 then.
600, yeah. And then we still, again, too, Mayor, like we were talking about, there's still the upside of the TNR, right? The Amy's Kitchen and Great Western, when that comes off, we don't know what that is. It could be some upside for us.
Yeah,
Just
yeah, that's stuff, we're waiting for the county to
give us that number.
let us know if those tax reimbursements are going to be. So this is kind of fluid at this point then, what I'm hearing.
Yeah, it'll be a very fluid budget for a while.
Okay.
On the liability insurance side, we have played, if you go back and you look at 5 years, we've gone between charging on the interfund or the tax to get to what they need. They need 1.9 million basically for their budget is approximately what they need to pay the liability fees and stuff. And they've got about 1.4 million in excess reserves right now. And so I want to tap into that and have them tap into that because we're going to need the extra tax money just to kind of meet our budget this year and kind of reallocate that a little bit. Just so as we go on.
Where is,
Yes, ma'am.
which number
So
on
I'm
here were
sorry.
you talking about, the
So on-
1.9?
If you look at on line 32, column M, that 229.
I'm looking at the
Yeah, we
printed,
don't-
which
we don't have
doesn't have
columns.
that.
So up there though, if you look at the slide.
Can you
there,
see it?
I can't,
Property, liability insurance, property tax, it's about three-quarters
So-
of the way down the,
So into the new estimated budget is 1.9 million. In this revenue slide, I've got 1.2 million. And the plan again is to tap into their excess reserve they have of about 1.4 million. And the reason being is because there are other departments where we need to shift that tax dollars so that we can kind of get through this year. In the case of street, I'm going to start out on the highway user tax. The AIC is projecting that will be down by almost $1 million. They got hit last year by $1.8 million. This year it's coming down by another $1 million. And so we're trying to get some property tax money there, 300 grand to help Tom out on that. He's got about 4 million in excess reserves so that he can tap into to meet the shortfall. And I believe his revenue that he's projecting is about 9.1 million that we need to get to on that. On the recreation side, again, as we're trying to clean up and repair this deferred maintenance on the parks and recreation, we're trying to make sure that Ann has adequate money to get that done so that, through the rebranding, the city looks nice and we're doing everything we can to do that. So the increase there is about 400,000. We need to start putting away though, or at least I would propose that we start putting away like 100,000 a year to start trying getting an endowment for the green maintenance trail. Because right now, it's on the backs of the taxpayer. And if we can start to build a fund, maybe we can get it to where it's a perpetual thing and can be paid off that way. Rick, any questions? I just can't quite see over there.
no, I'll interrupt
Let me
you.
know. Okay, thanks, Mayor.
Oh, just a minute.
So that $100,000 endowment, that's included in this
Yes,
number?
yeah. And again, it's just we want to start that conversation to have that, okay? Then if we go to cemetery, we're going to get into, in the fee discussion, we're changing the fees quite dramatically for plots and things like that, and we'll have Ann talk about that during the fees. But basically, their revenue will almost double on the other fees. On the tax side, again, we're trying to get another $100,000 there because there's an endowment, for the maintenance of the grave, right? The plot after people die 100 years from now, we want to make sure that there's an endowment situation again where it's not on the back of the taxpayers, but going forward, there's an endowment to try and do that. Airport, 235,000 increase on theirs. Library, flat. Capital improvement, basically flat. So, and that brings us to, and again, this is just for the government tax revenues. You'll see on the right-hand side, column O, where we have the maximum of the 3%, that 1.023. We're at 1.39, so a little over there. But if we do the foregone of the 1%, we would be at 1.368. And then our max would be 1.374, so we're just under that, 10,000 bucks under it. Again, given that we do the 1% on the foregone. Jumping down to transit, we're just assuming that's pretty much flat from last year. There's not a lot down through here. The big, obviously in the grants, that's in Fund 81. Grants is always a question, especially with what's going on now. The rest of the ARPA funds should be spent, will have to be spent by the end of 26, right? So we've got that included in there. Not else is a lot's changed per se in this. And then we get down to the proprietary funds. I think it's important to note that information in the IT area or IS area, there's just so many fees that are going up, their costs are going up, and they support the city. So their increase will be above 3% because we need to get them. It's almost up to like 9% increase year over year, just so that they can pay the basic phone systems and things like that for the city to keep functioning. And then you get into the enterprise, and that's basically based off the rate study. So you can see that we're basically up. If you get to the total bottom, or the bottom, total government wide, we're up about $2 million total revenues year over year. And again, I think it's really important to remember this is going to be very fluid. It's going to change as we go through it. And then also, it does not cover the expenditures yet. You know, we're not comparing the revenues and expenditures. We're just comparing this year over year on the revenue side. So that's kind of it on the revenues. Any questions? Suggestions?
Councilmember Cheatham.
Under government reserve funds, there's a note of Fund 78 capital improvement. Are there plans for that money, or are that just set aside just in case?
Fund 78. So that is the, Fund 78 is set aside for individual departments within the general fund to have a place to set aside money for capital improvements. And so, you know, fire has been setting aside for new equipment, whatever.
Where we put excess money or money that we have not been able to spend in fiscal year one. Like in fiscal year 24, we put the carryover into that money so those departments don't lose that and are still able to pay for those things we've ordered, just not received yet. Right. And then also, years ago, we established that fund so that if we have an opportunity, the thing was, I think we used a fire truck. We have an opportunity if we need the fire truck and we have this money in here and we can pay for it all and save the citizens.
Are there named projects that we're saving?
They are in their departments. The departments have them and some of them have them, you know, fire truck and stuff, but the council didn't want to pigeonhole those to one thing in case we needed something else that came up that would help the department better in the future when they were looking at it. So it's, you know, you've got police has and fire and you have other departments to have a fund in there. And then there is some excess that we have just in case planning, for example, needs some new equipment for something. GIS needs a new system. We can have the money and we can get that so that we can repair and we can continue to do what we need to do.
The reason I ask is there's been talk across the state of limiting local jurisdictions' reserves unless those are named projects that are being saved toward. That's why I was wondering if these were.
I think most of it does have a name, but it's not literally, we can only buy a fire truck with this. It's fire equipment type of a thing, I think is what we've got most of it. There's some of it that is definitely earmarked for a certain thing. And fire is a bad example. We know we have to replace a truck every 15 years. And so we have that so that we're not looking to the taxpayers and saying we need $2 million this year that we haven't planned for. We actually have a plan to make it so we don't have to hit the taxpayers every 15 years for a new vehicle or a new truck. Because they're expensive, right? I got my fire chief back there.
I'm here for Chief of
Oh, there you are. They're expensive?
Yes.
Yeah. They're a couple million dollars, yeah, and so,
Mayor, if I can too, on that with the CIP, not the inflation, but the CIP that we're doing the study on, that will help us to identify specific projects where we can allocate all of any excess reserves will be allocated to those based on council's direction based on that. So that will really help us have that
yeah.
done.
But it might be something, to your point, that we'll need to take a look at and for sure have it, because there has been that desire for a number of years to do something, so.
Okay.
Any other questions, Councilmember Nichols?
So have you had a chance to look at the, sort of the budget overall income and expenses? And do you have a sort of a sense as to where we're at and what the challenges might be this year?
I have at a very high level, until we get it all worked out. I think Heather will cover, the benefits and costs like that. I think if we do approximately a 3% increase, a step plus 1.5 for salaries plus the benefits, you're approaching $2 million, right? And so, I think it'll be a good year, but it's gonna be it's gonna be tight. And so we're gonna have to really budget tightly for it. And we may have to dip in reserves. I'm not, that's your call in some cases, but I think it's gonna be a tight year.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you. So we're headed to fiscal year 26 proposed fee increases.
This is a fun one.
This is a fun
What
one.
is it, 135 pages? I'm kidding. 35, okay. Hopefully you had a chance to look at this, but we're just gonna go through it quickly, and have I would like the department heads to come up, so if you have any questions, they can do that. So Alan, would you mind joining us? Grab it.
Alan Evans, Airport Manager. Our fees have stayed the same with the exception of what you're seeing there at the bottom, the air badge fee. And that's the air badge, if you recall, is the process that we're using to badge our people that are getting onto the airfield. And so they go in and they fill out the paperwork, and it's vetted through the various processes to make sure that they're allowed on the airfield. The fee change there is just if we are using Stripe, which is who Air Badge uses. They'll have different ways to pay, but if they desire to use Stripe, there is a 2.9% fee plus the 30 cents as well that will go to Air Badge for that. Other than that, our regular fee is 2.74% if they use a different method. And that's really all that we had.
Alan, just a minute. Councilmember Paulson?
Why is it 2.9% plus 30 cents? Why not
It is
just a
part,
float?
it is Stripe's fee.
Oh, that's
It's-
why.
It is
Okay.
what it is. It's
I
not
see.
for us. It's
Okay.
what Stripe charges. So we're recouping that.
I see, thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Cheatham?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Does the fees collected here go into the general fund at the airport then, or are they dedicated for any specific project or use?
The fees here really cover our costs. There really isn't, we're not making money on the badging at all. It's just covering our costing, making sure that we are not putting out money. Hopefully that helps.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you.
I don't think there's any changes. No, this would be, alcohol beverage licenses. Is that under, police or?
Let's see.
Yeah, Roger? You
Mallory's in the back.
Yeah. Oh. What's that?
Oh, just Mallory raised her hand.
Oh,
Valerie Bascom, Pocatello Police Licensing. So the only change for our alcohol fees this year were to get us in compliance with what we're allowed to charge through state code. And that was basically flipping the beer off premise and beer on premise, making beer off premise the default cost, and maxing out at $200 for beer fees. In the past, we had been charging 200 plus 50, but we can only charge a max of 200 for beer. And so by flipping those and putting the beer off premise cost at 50, it right-sided that.
Okay. Questions? Okay.
Thank you. See, business licenses.
Business licenses. I think that's you. Who does business license?
Oh, that's me, I'm sorry. I was looking at the animal service fees.
All right.
So for these ones where we're working to get all of our codes consistent language-wise and the fees, some of them we were charging a $5 replacement card fee for those that were, our code requires they're issued an ID card. So we added the $5 fee to any that we issue an ID card for. And then with the taxi cabs, we added the caveat that if we are to begin issuing ID cards, we would charge that fee there. Because as we're reviewing the taxi code, it requires that we issue a license with a photo on it. And one of my proposed changes is just issuing the license and the ID card. So then that $5 fee would apply there as well.
That's a fee that we have not had before.
That's correct.
Okay.
We had it only for private investigators and security guards. And now we're saying we would add it for any that are issued an ID card.
What about okay, you've got the solicitor license fee. Is that $40 per person?
Yes, when they originally apply, it's $80, and that covers their fingerprinting and their background check. And then every other license, if they renew on time without expiring, we were giving them an early renewal discount, but we weren't doing that for solicitors. In the last couple of years, we've had a couple of companies who have come into compliance and been really good about renewing on time, but they weren't getting a discount for maintaining their licensure, so we just added that decreased fee for renewals only from 80 to 40.
Okay. Councilmember Cheatham?
Mr. Mayor, I'm wondering, when we do those renewals, do we do a new background check on these people to see if anything's happened in the interim?
We do a local check, and then we have a other program that allows us to see other agencies' involvements, and so we check them that way. We'll check them through I-courts, and so we don't do a full background with fingerprinting. For the private investigators or solicitors who live in a different town, I'll send an additional records request to their local jurisdiction to see if they've had any involvements there, but they don't get fingerprinted every year, which is what half of that cost is upfront.
Does this cover the cost of doing that follow-up investigation?
Yes.
Okay. Other questions? All right. Thank you.
They might want to stick around for item 5, too.
You might want to stick around for item 5, it looks like. Why don't you, yeah. Then we'll go to cemetery. I don't think you got cemetery, do you?
No.
She's just trying to get steps. We're in her walking challenge, apparently, so. Questions? Yes, Councilmember
Why
Cheatham.
have we dropped the fee on sexual-oriented business licenses?
The reasoning behind that was that we are trying to get our costs more in line code to code. And the amount of upfront work that goes into inspecting the sexually oriented business is no more than we're doing on any other businesses upfront. And so it seemed as though we were charging them more just for the type of business they were, and not actually the effort that went into the initial setup of the business itself in issuing that license.
And that's true all the way down through the reductions in all those fees?
That's correct. And then on the employee renewal, most of our renewals or our initial fees for employees are $80. And so instead of having 75 on one and 80 on another, we just changed it to 80 so it would be consistent for employees across different business types.
Interesting. Thank you.
Councilmember Nichols.
Do we issue many licenses for the sexually oriented businesses?
We have one business in town currently that gets that business license, and then all of their employees must be background checked and licensed as well.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions, council? Okay, thank you. Cemetery, this one's gonna be,
Ann Butler, Parks and Recreation Director. We did significantly make changes to cemetery fees. We had about 5 pages of fees listing every variety of different type of fees. And so in meeting with finance and looking at how low our fees were, we decided to simplify. So you'll see a section of property fees and a section of services that we provide. So we have changed, have proposed some increases and simplified these. We have a full-size plot, basically an ash or an infant plot or a single niche ash. So those are about half the size of a full-size plot. And then you have the double ash niche, which is a cabinet in essence that you open and close. So we have proposed increases to the property fees. There are limited increases to the services fees other than that disinterment fee. We had a couple different fees there depending on the size and decided to simplify and have a flat fee there. So as you can see on the property fees up above, like the half fees, you can see double that amount for the double ash. So we tried to simplify and make it clean, but there are significant changes there. A lot of the other fees last year may have included an opening and closing depending on what type it was, and it was really confusing for staff and patrons. So this is our simplified version of that. The verbiage as numbers 2, 3, and 4 are exactly the same as the previous fee structure.
okay, we've got Councilmember Nichols, then Councilmember Cheatham.
So on the cost of the, say, the full-size plot, I noticed price will go up significantly. How does the new proposed price correspond with other communities? I mean,
Sure. Chantel actually did most of the legwork on this, but the biggest changes, we will have an endowment included in that fee. I think it's $500 of each of those will go into an endowment fund so that we can plan, when that cemetery is full, we still have to water the grass and take care of weeds and handle those things. So it builds for the future. But we also, in her work, these are only residential fees that included endowments, not non-residential. So we've got locations in California at $13,000 just for the plot, $3,200, $3,900, $2,000, $2,900, $2,300. Pocatello was at $1,100. And that did not include opening and closing fees, which are still quite a bit higher than where we are currently. So I know it's a big change for Pocatello, but I do feel like it's in line with a lot of cemeteries across the country.
Councilmember Cheatham.
2 questions, Mr. Mayor, if I may. Have the local mortuaries been consulted or talked to about this change of fee?
No, they have not.
So this is going to surprise them.
Yep.
Okay.
But they also have a lot of fees on the backside that we don't have any control of either, that they charge for services.
Yeah. It says under note 4 that the cemetery supervisor has the authority to determine eligibility for residential status. Is there a city policy that helps them make that determination? And I guess what I'm asking is really, is it the person arranging who may be a resident, or is it the person who's being arranged?
That's the hard part, is a lot of times you'll have a relative from somewhere else come in. What we're typically looking for, and if they're confused or they have a question, they call me. But what we're typically looking for is property ownership in Pocatello. Was the deceased a resident of Pocatello is kind of standard rule of thumb there.
Okay. But there's not a formal policy.
No.
I think we need one. To make
Something
that
that we
clear.
we can get working on something like that to come probably mid-year, but it's not a bad idea to have some kind of a policy.
Some guidelines.
We have resident and non-resident fees throughout this, so
Yeah.
I presume there might be some definition.
I think we've always just used the address of the person, in this case, the being arranged, the address of where they have lived, but
But I guess my struggle with that is somebody could be in a long-term care center or a nursing home of some sort, be a property owning resident, get moved, and 6 months later they pass, and how do we determine what their residency was exactly?
that's a hard one. There's no question. That's a tough one to figure out, and so I think that's why they'll be calling Ann to say, all right, what do you think? This is where. The point with most of this has been, we citizens in Pocatello, we're paying for cemeteries. Citizens outside of Pocatello aren't. And we have a lot of people that are coming to our cemetery that are not citizens, that have not paid into this. And we need to change that. We need to start making it so the cemeteries will be full. We anticipate 11 years-ish, 11 to 15 years.
We're projecting about 11 at Mountain View. We may get a little more out of that on Rest Lawn because we have a larger parcel at the back. But they are very different cemeteries, and there is a desire to have an upright headstone in this community. So that means Rest Lawn's not going to be a preferred choice going forward.
Well, and
We have to look at that.
And to get that back part, we've got a significant cost ahead of us for irrigation and grass and all of that mess. And so there's that. And then as we talked, if we have 11 years, that means year 5 or 6, we need to buy property and then start developing that property so that in 11 years, it's ready to go. And right now, we don't have that. And so
Several years ago, if I may add, we had that discussion about a piece of property that adjoins this and decided not to do that.
Yeah.
And to go somewhere else when that need comes, and which is going to increase maintenance costs because it won't be centrally located.
That's right.
I guess one of my concerns with this resident, non-resident thing is if someone purchases a plot while they are a resident and uses that fee, then if they move to another community in the interim and then pass, do they qualify because they already own a plot as a resident, or now they a non-resident?
Yeah.
If they purchase it at the time as a resident, then they pay that fee, but then there are service fees.
Right.
As a non-resident if they live elsewhere.
And my biggest concern is, not to throw a wrench in your thought process, is we have a number of the funeral homes that buy 10 in a row, and are they used for a resident or a non-resident? And so it's going to be an interesting thing to work around. And so that,
Maybe we shouldn't permit that.
maybe not. Maybe we shouldn't permit that. So anyway, there's some hurdles to get over, but I think we're moving in the right direction in increasing these the way they need to be increased and things. Councilmember Mangum? No? Well, you answered your questions?
Yep.
All right.
Thanks.
Other questions for Ann? I think it's a good idea to think about some of these things, though, Rick, and maybe some of those recommendations. And so,
As I head into my
twilight years.
future, this is becoming more and more important to me.
That's right. You want to go the other way for a few years. No. Okay. Thank you.
Unfortunately, we don't get that choice.
Nope. We don't. Childcare licenses, council, as you know, we no longer can charge for childcare licenses. I think that children group treatment, is that you? But just the childcare, it's just gone away, and so we don't have that.
So for the children group treatment centers, we did the same thing as we were with other businesses and trying to get the costs aligned so that they're consistent for employee and business type across the board. The facility one is different here in that we don't really have anything to base it off historically because we don't have any of these licensed currently. And so I'm in the process of researching those businesses and seeing if there's any that are not in compliance and should be, but the code is very restrictive. And so I don't have any historical data to look at to say, are these fees correct for the facility itself? And so we left We just put it at the 100 that we had seen with other facilities of different industries. And then we did a renewal fee at a reduced cost because they won't have to have fingerprints every year.
Councilmember Cheatham.
Mr. Mayor, I'm curious, Mallory, is this a calendar year or a fiscal year that we're dealing with?
So the codes vary, and I am, off the top of my head, I'm not sure if this one is fiscal, but most of them are calendar year. So it's from, they usually get a full year from the month they apply, they expire at the end of that month. And I believe that's the case with this one as well.
So if they didn't, if they applied this month, then it would be
Until May of next year at the end of the
12
month.
months, okay.
Okay, Councilmember Paulson.
Is this something like the Bannock House, or is this counseling, or what is children group treatment?
So it's, the code is for anyone offering group treatment to children 2.5 to 12 years of age for 90 minutes or more a session when the parents are not on site, but it excludes overnight care. And so the way that it's currently written is very restrictive. And so we're looking into some of the state codes to see how we can align better with those, and speaking with some of our detectives to see how this code fits into the kind of investigations we do. And so right now, it's so restrictive that any of those providing treatment for children over 12 automatically do not qualify. Any that do overnight care automatically do not qualify. And so it's just so restrictive right now. But it includes mental health treatment or like occupational therapy. And but it's all kind of vague at this point. So
Thank you.
it's being dug into.
Mr. Mayor?
Okay, yes, Councilmember
What's
Cheatham.
the penalty for noncompliance?
I'm not sure, it just, I know that it's got a misdemeanor tied to it. I don't know what the fines are associated with that, or if this one has civil penalties written into it, because I haven't had to issue any at this point. But I do know that it references misdemeanors, and I believe in most cases, in the other codes anyways, those are fines of up to $300, and some of them reference jail time. So I would imagine that they're similar, but I don't know what the specifics off the top of my head.
These fees will go into effect with the next budget year, correct?
October.
Yeah,
Yeah, October 1.
okay. Interesting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. We need to coordinate these a little bit better, so you guys don't bounce back and
Yeah,
forth.
she needs the steps.
All right, commercial activities in parks and public spaces is mostly special event permits. We're just kind of playing a line here to make sure that the majority of the special events are under 50 people. We're just trying to keep it affordable so people keep calling so that they can make those reservations and we don't have conflicts. So we did propose some meager increases there, but nothing major.
Okay, questions? All right.
I have a question.
Oh, hold on. Councilmember Mangum.
So for multiple things, we have resident and non-resident, but for these event permits, we don't have anything for resident versus non-resident. Is there a reason why?
Yeah, the majority of them are businesses, for example, or non-for-profits, and so it's difficult to say if a PO box is a resident or a non-resident. You have people attending from all over typically, and so this was what we thought was the best approach. We've never had a non-resident attached to this section.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay.
All right, I'm April Murphy. I'm a permit tech in the building department. I'm here for Richard Bigelow, the building official. He is out sick. So we've been working on these fee increases for over the last year. We actually haven't had any fee increases in the building department since 2006. So it's been quite a while for our permits since we've had those fees. And obviously the cost of wages, fuel, maintenance has gone up. So we decided it was time to review that and go through some changes. On here, you'll see most of the changes are just related to our trade permits. So electrical, plumbing, mechanical, a majority of them. We made the changes and we also did some things to make it a little easier and streamline the process for contractors. So, yeah.
Questions? Councilmember Cheatham?
Just a question about language. It says new residential mechanical permits. Is that a new resident or a new permit?
So it's a permit. So basically what those ones are for is for new construction. So
Okay.
like new, and these ones are just gonna be for residential. So that's gonna be single family duplexes or townhomes. Currently, it's very complicated and we charge per fixture, per outlet, different things like that. So in our research with other jurisdictions, we decided to kind of mirror what they do, and pretty much every other jurisdiction that we compared to, so Idaho Falls, Boise, Twin Falls, State, Rexburg, that's how they do it. They base it off of square footage for residential. So that's one of the ways that we decided to make it a little bit easier for not only the permit techs, but the contractors. So they're not have to enter in every single fixture that's in the house, all the rooms, all the tiny little things. So those are just for residential trades.
If I may follow up, Mr. Mayor. Will this speed up then the permit process by making the application less complicated?
It will make it a little faster and it'll be more accurate. Right now, sometimes the contractors, when they're applying for permits, they're not the plumber, so they're kind of just going through the plans, adding up what they think are fixtures. So the permit techs are having to go through the plans and add them up and make corrections. So it will be more accurate, more fair, and it does make it a little quicker in the review process.
One follow-up again. Is there an anticipated increase or decrease in revenue for the department from the change in the process?
Yes, there will be a little bit, but mostly what we're doing is trying to cover the cost to run the building department. Right now, basically commercial permits are kind of keeping us a little bit more lined up. Without the commercial permits, we would not even come close to make enough money to cover the cost of doing inspections, reviews, anything like that. So we don't think it's gonna bring in like extra revenue, like leftover. It's basically just gonna be covering, hopefully, the cost of running the building department.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mayor, if I
Thank you.
can.
Yes.
Just wanted to just quickly say that basically the building department is self-sufficient for the most part. It brings in enough revenue to cover its costs. Just
Super. Okay, thank you.
electric signs.
And April, you have a lot in this section here, don't you?
We have a big fee section.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, one other thing that caught my eye when I was going through this, under the industrial and commercial permits, we're increasing the cost depending on what the cost of the project is rather than the job itself. And that part I don't understand. 2% of wiring costs up to $400. And I'm not sure I understand as wiring costs, as the cost of materials increase, we're increasing the cost of this, yet we're doing the same work. That seems incongruous.
Yeah, I mean, to me, and you'll have to ask Richard the more details about that, but I'm not sure really how to answer your question. We didn't for the total wiring cost, that's just how it was, that's how it's been set up for, I don't know how many years, that's just what they determined. So it's a change that we decided just to, I mean, we didn't make a very big increase on that. I'm not entirely sure why it was initially charged that way. In researching all the other jurisdictions, that's how most jurisdictions do it, is they do it by wiring cost, the percentage up to a certain amount, and then over an amount. So it's not that far off from how other jurisdictions do it, so.
I don't like it.
Is it off from how other jurisdictions do it, or when you say not so far off? Do you mean that's what they
so
do, or?
I'd have to look at each, I mean, I spelled it out for each jurisdiction. I'm not sure the exact amount, but from what ours is, other than like, so the only thing we changed was the base fee. So the base fee used to be $30 plus the added percentage. Other jurisdictions, I mean, it's hard to compare exactly, but most of them are like a certain percentage of wiring cost up to a certain amount. So it just depends on how they do theirs. So that's the only change we made. So I can't tell you exactly. I'd have to go back to all my notes and see who charges what. But it's very, very similar, other than their base fees were much higher than our base fee. So we didn't make a ton of changes compared to other jurisdictions on that one.
You don't like this, what are you, this is
Well,
how we've
I
done
guess
it in the
yeah.
past?
Yeah, that's how it's been, going back through the history of all of our fees. That's how they've done the commercial trades, as far back as I can see. I mean,
Okay, what are your thoughts?
Well, my
What-
concern is the cost of copper is up. The cost of wiring is up. So we're going to charge more to inspect the same job that was inspected 10 years ago when wiring costs were half or a quarter of what they were then. We're going to increase the cost of that because the cost of materials goes up, not because we're doing more work. That seems like it's driving the cost of construction, of building things in our community simply because of inflation. And I think I'd rather see a higher permit fee and eliminate that added percentage portion. And I understand it's relevant to what other communities are doing, but I don't care. Let's be innovative.
and that is a permit fee, to be clear. I guess I should make, that is a commercial permit fee. So I don't know. I mean, you can definitely have a discussion with Richard a little bit. He might have a little more insight on that, but.
Well, let's circle this or mark it so that we can have that discussion with Richard and see what maybe makes sense. I mean, I understand what Rick's saying, but I also understand what it takes to cover the fees, and maybe that's your base fee is what it takes to cover the
Call it good.
cost, so. Okay. Anything else, council, on this?
Signs.
So that one is our fee, not planning's fee
Okay.
for signs.
It's,
And the same thing goes down to the commercial industrial permits on mechanical stuff. We're doing the same thing there. 2% of the total mechanical cost. And I don't see what the cost of a air conditioning unit has to do with what we charge for a permit.
So it's job valuation is basically what they're getting at. So the valuation of that for the industrial, for all three of those permits. So, and that's just how they, some point in the past, decided to do it, so.
But
But
it
it
sounds
could
like it's kind of an industry-wide, it wasn't just somebody here went, oh, hey, this is a good idea, let's do this. It's kind of more of an industry-wide that have done that, and
Yeah.
so,
I think so,
okay.
yeah.
I see our planner back there nodding his head going, yeah, it's kind of an industry-wide, this is how it's done, so.
Let's be different.
Let's, we got it marked and let's have that discussion to see if there's a different way to do it and accomplish what we need to.
Mayor.
Yes.
Well,
Councilmember Paulson.
maybe, I don't know if this is true or not, but flat fees, flat taxes are really just a regressive tax. So if something is a flat one, someone doing a lower project paying the same fee as someone doing a bigger project, that's not fair to the littler person. Is that kind of the logic in this?
Yeah, and I mean, most of ours, it's kind of hard because some, they're not necessarily, I mean, we base a lot of our fees on our work, like our inspections.
Yeah.
So, like with trades, depending on the scope of work. There's multiple permits that we go out many times to do inspections. Some of our ones, like our flat fee ones, like residential roofs, they're so basic that no matter the scope of work, we're doing the same amount of work. And so we just kind of charge a flat fee just because no matter the valuation, we're doing the same amount of work. So that's one of the things that we looked at. So you will see some are flat fees and some are based on valuations.
Thank you.
Okay, super, thank you. Other questions? Seeing none, let's move on.
Okay, I
No
think-
proposed
oh,
changes
that
there.
was-
Engineering review fees.
I think those are engineering.
Thank you, April.
Yep.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Jeff Mansfield, Public Works Director and City Engineer. If I may comment just a little bit on the building permit fees. So from my perception and my understanding, the reason why they put a base fee and then a percentage is because no matter what the project is, you're gonna have an amount of work that you need to do. But then your percentage is gonna be based on the amount of materials that are included in that project that require more inspection. So you can't really just go in there and say, yeah, for every 100 feet of wire or, every 10 feet of piping, they just base it on cost. That's how they're coming up with that. That amount of inspection that's required is based on the cost of it. So the higher the cost, the more inspection time that's required. So that's my understanding.
Mr. Mayor, in reality, who determines that cost? Are we forcing contractors to lie on their applications, to hold down their fees? How are we assessing that determination of cost? I'd rather see a per job work that we're doing in the department. And it's over. We're not, I see those reports every month and I wonder about the values that are posted. They seem, in many instances, very low. Residential home, and we're saying it's only worth $50,000. I'm very concerned about that.
Sure. Well, for example, if you got somebody rewiring a bedroom, they shouldn't be charged the same fee as somebody who's wiring a whole new house.
No, but how much time is it going to take to inspect it? That's what I'd be concerned
Right.
about. How many hours are we going to spend inspecting that home for a bedroom versus an entire house?
Right.
That's where the cost of the city incurs
Exactly.
should be somehow determined, not by the value of the wire in the wall.
Yeah. So,
And when inflation goes up, we're going to charge more, and that for the same work.
right. Yeah. So, okay, so for engineering review fees, we have added the preliminary plat improvement plan fee. We found that we didn't really have a mechanism there to charge for the preliminary plat review, so we've added that fee. And then that final plat improvement plan review, that's already in there, and that should have been the $200 with the $150 for the additional review. So the final plat review is already in there at the $200, and then the additional fee at the $150. So. Also, we added a section for retaining wall permit fees. We've got a lot more retaining walls going up, and we've had to do a lot of reviews on retaining walls. And so we've added this section for retaining wall reviews and permits. And that's in accordance with the Uniform Building Code tables. We found that our section H, our right-of-way and easement utilities was not quite as much as we needed for that, and so we've increased that from $75 to $100. And then we've also added a section M for inspections, re-inspections, for the engineering review of records of survey, property line adjustments, zone map amendments, vacation of easements, vacations of subdivision plats, and right-of-way de-annexation and annexation processes. We did not have that mechanism in there. And then as far as our grading permit and plan review processing, we've basically just increased those by the CPI and rounded to the nearest 50 cents on that one. Can I cover GIS while I'm here, or do you want fire?
You don't want steps? Go ahead and cover it if you don't want to get any
I
extra
can
steps.
come back if
Go
you
ahead,
want.
cover
Okay.
GIS.
So for GIS, what we did there is we added the, typically, historically, it just said digital aerial photography, and we didn't really have a mechanism to charge for GIS data sets that we were providing. And so we've just added that to the description, and that fee is $800 per 200 acres or a portion thereof. So that's been added to the fee schedule.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilmember Cheatham.
Thank you. I'm going to make the same complaint that I made about electrical wiring when it comes to these retaining walls. The cost of building that stuff is more expensive, so we're going to charge a higher fee, but we do the same inspection. To me, it would be more fair to do a cubic yard or linear foot or area of retaining wall or something that is more definitive. So as construction costs go up, we're not charging more to inspect the same thing that we inspected before.
Yeah, again, it's just based on complexity and size and things like that is really kind of how that's been set up based on valuation, so.
Yeah, but 10 years ago, a $500,000 retaining wall is now $1 million retaining wall, and we're doing the same work. Basing it on inflationary cost does not seem to be fair to the contractor.
But
But-
the city's cost to
Right.
inspect have also increased.
True. So we can, but each year we can change the base fee, not base it on the cost of the wall itself, because we're doing the same inspection.
And we do track what those costs are, and you know, we'll make adjustments in the future if we feel like we're overcharging for those or undercharging. But that is based on the 1997 edition of the Uniform Building Code, so.
So what does that uniform building code say? That this is how you charge for it, or?
I'd have to go back and review that and make sure on that. I know that's how that table was set up, but I'd have to go back and review if those numbers came out exactly of that table.
I guess the thing that would concern me is if they're being charged, a developer is being charged one thing in Pocatello, but something else in Chubbuck or Idaho Falls or Twin Falls or Logan, if we're basing it on a uniform building code. You would think it'd be fairly consistent throughout the industry.
Let me do some looking into that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, anything else for GIS, council? He covered that and ran. He was not sticking around here. Let's bounce back to fire.
Autumn Baker on behalf of Chief O'Hearn today for the fire department. We actually had a reduction in our fee from $50 to $45 for the mobile food vendor inspections. And we determined that number because we now recognize other inspections in other jurisdictions like Twin Falls, Boise, Nampa, because a lot of these food vendors move around quite frequently. And when we looked at their fees, all of them were charging $45. So ours was $5 higher. We decided to match it. That way, you know, our vendors stay here to get their inspections, and we recognize them back and forth between the other jurisdictions. So.
Questions?
What do we inspect on a mobile food vendor?
So they need to go in and make sure that they have suppression hoods, because there's been instances where a food truck will go to set up, and if they're frying certain foods and they don't have those hoods that are in there, and they're not inspected annually, or sometimes more frequently if they've got a high grease content, then our inspector will go out and make the recommendations on when they need to be serviced. And so it's a compliance to make sure that it's a safe unit and it's standard for everybody. That way we don't have some people selling hamburgers without a hood, which it's a significant expense to put one of those in, but this way it keeps everybody safe and it's consistent across all food trucks when they're cooking those foods.
If I may ask one more.
Absolutely.
Is that also inspected when Southeast Idaho Public Health inspects these vendors? Are we doing the same thing twice?
No, so they inspect they do their own health inspections, but fire specifically goes in, they check to make sure their fire extinguishers are serviced. And then we're the ones who are in coordination with the companies that actually service the trucks. We get the reports on those, so we do have a separate function when we're doing it.
Thank you. Councilmember Mangum, and then Councilmember Paulson.
The health inspection is more on sanitation. Are they sanitary? Do they have hand washing? Do they have their cleaning process, stuff like that? Is the food up to temperature or down to a certain temperature? Has nothing to do with the mechanical aspects of the
No,
food
you've
truck.
been looking into it.
I've been looking into it.
And for Councilman Cheatham, my brother-in-law owns a hood and duct cleaning business, and every quarter they have to be cleaned, and then it's reported to the health department.
And then they pay this annually. Some of them are in service year-round and others are seasonal. And so it's an annual fee to be inspected, and we keep records of all of that. And so that's our, we've determined that $45 would be our inspectors' fees per truck. And some of them have been very good about, they even bring their truck to the station just to get it done so that they don't fall out of compliance and they can go into other jurisdictions, so.
When you say annual, are we talking calendar year again, or from date one to next date, or?
I believe these are like, from the time they get it, they have a full year, just because I've seen them come in to our station throughout the year. It may be because they are also not open
Yeah.
a full year, so I would have to defer to our inspector for the specifics on that, but I believe it
My guess is it's a 12-month
rolling kinda.
thing because we don't want all of them at one time. We just don't have the
January
time
2nd.
to, yeah, January 2,
We run
everybody
into
shows
that with
up.
the firework vendors when they all hit at once, and I
Yeah.
don't think they like to have situations where they hit everything on January 1st kind of.
So I know that was an issue with liquor licenses and firework stands, and so I think that for the most part, most of these are a 12-month rolling.
You get new trucks coming in that, maybe they enter the field of
Yeah.
food truck businesses at a month after the deadline for the new businesses or something, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yes, Councilmember Nichols.
So I note here it says removing burn permit and early renewal fees. Why are you removing those fees under fire department fees?
Permit and early renewal fee.
The top line there, just
I am
below.
not, they didn't give me any instruction on that one. So on the burn permits, most of those are done online. And so we don't have an inspection fee. There's occasionally ones that are in like the WUI areas or bordering a WUI area. And they literally review it on a map within the office and are able to respond quickly. So I would imagine that the burn permit fee was being removed just because we no longer have to go out and physically inspect them. And so the majority of them are just, they scan a QR code, they fill it out, it comes into our office, we process it within minutes, most days. And I would imagine that the reason they removed that is because our workload has reduced on the way that we now process them.
All right, thank you.
Super, thank you.
Yep.
If I'd have known we could request to not bounce around, I'd have done that a little bit earlier.
Should have done it before this morning.
All right, Ann Butler, Parks and Rec Director. These are our recreation side fee increases. The first one is in team sports. Unfortunately, we have less and less people willing to umpire those games, and that is why the cost of that probably will continue to increase. To be fair, it's a tough job, and it's probably worth more money. So there is an increase there. Fun runs, we are proposing some meager increases there as well. We are growing substantially in this area, and that requires more time and more staff. So it's really striking a balance in the fun run area. Nordic Center, Mink Creek Nordic Center fees. The most important aspect of these fees is they haven't changed for a really long time, but is also a cash-based business where they leave money in boxes at times, and so having a random amount is difficult to get the right amount in there. So having random dollars or change is really difficult, which is why we rounded to the $5 there on that adult from 10 to 15. Meager increases throughout. Down at the bottom of number 4 there, IK package, that's a kayak. I know that was kind of confusing for people to see, but we do rent kayaks and paddle boards and tubes. Ross Park Aquatics Complex, I'll point out a few things there. We did add a water slide season pass. We did not add that last year because we didn't know when we would be open. That season pass has to go with a regular season pass. You can't just buy a pass for the slide for the season. So, and then we are proposing an increase to the day use of the water slide, and I have projected increases in revenue at Ross Park for that as well. I'll go ahead and jump to the rec center and point out a few things there. There are some increases. Legal had asked us to kind of talk a little bit about insurance and grants section. So you used to just have Silver and Fit, which was the Medicare coverage for facilities, but they've kind of splintered off and there's lots of other different programs, and so it's difficult. I'm on page 18, if that's helpful to you.
It's helpful if I can find the freaking page. 18, all right, thanks, Andy.
18.
Got it.
Sorry, Jean, I didn't realize
fine.
you were, I look over at Connie like, Connie, help me out. All right, so insurance and grants. So we have several different programs here, and it's difficult because they're changing their programs, but not necessarily communicating with the facilities that have to house those people. And so these are the current ones, the Fit On, Renew, Silver and Fit, and Divinity. So I guess we have a choice. If you guys don't like the structure, we have to refuse people into those areas. But I would really like to work as best we can with all of these programs as they come up to get those people in our facilities. But it is difficult because sometimes they change it on the fly with different legislation, and we don't know about it until we run it and find out that things have changed a little bit. So I just wanted to make it clear that those are different things from what you've seen in the past. And I'm guessing they'll continue to change a little bit. Let's see. We're also down at the bottom of page 18, proposing some increases to our softball and baseball reservation in our turf area. I don't think this has changed in a long time, and I was hesitant to go too far because I really do want to encourage people to make the reservation instead of just going out and using it without us knowing, and liability that way. So we haven't proposed an increase of $12 per hour instead of 10, and $52 for the day instead of 50. Like I said, it's not a lot, but it does help. Every little bit helps. We added Ross Park climbing area to exclusive use fees because we do have a few groups that would like to do that exclusively. And we want to make sure that we have the manpower to make sure that that's done correctly. On page 19, we have, this is your pavilion rental section, which is different from a special event. The majority of the people this is really kind of family or family reunions, small parties, things like that. This is a section that I would like on page 19 and 20 in the future to bring some changes to. I think it's kind of confusing at times. And so I'll probably bring that in a work session and look at that in the future. Yeah.
Go ahead, Councilman.
Well, I'm just curious about the enforcement. Like, I've had an event before, like I think we paid 100 to 200, but only 75 showed up, or, how, that just seems very labor intensive to go and count people.
We don't go out and count. We really do rely on people to be honest with us and tell us kind of how big their party is. Definitely if they tell us that there's only going to be 20 people there and we get complaints from a neighborhood that there's 200, that's a different conversation. But on the whole, I would say residents are pretty honest about, hey, you know, I really think I'm only gonna have 60 people, because they're planning food for those events and things like that as well. But on occasion, it does happen.
Thank you.
So there were some about $3 increases in most of those sections throughout the pavilion rental increases. I think that might be the end of rec, if you have other questions for me. The zoo, they evaluate their fee structure every other year, and so we are not proposing any increases to the zoo this year.
Are you jumping way ahead?
I did, I just kind of threw that in there at the end.
35 pages ahead.
Yeah, she jumped
a-
over
it's a
everybody. She's
one-liner.
like, I'm tired of walking back and forth.
Doesn't need any more steps.
That's right. Okay. Questions for Ann? Yeah, Councilmember Cheatham.
Mr. Mayor, if we could go back to page 18, that baseball, softball park reservation thing. Is that fee per team or per participant?
So those are mostly use agreements you'll see. On occasion, we'll get a specific team that will want to do that. But on the whole, it's like PVSC or CGA. It's a larger organization where they're wanting to rent the facility for a tournament, or a lot of times they'll have, I know like CGA rents at Indian Hills, and they'll rent for their games, and they'll have like 6 games out there in one day. So that's why it's the $52 instead of the per hour use.
Okay. And the kayak stuff,
Yes.
I gotta find that again. Where was that?
Page 16.
16?
Okay.
How money-making is those rentals? I guess I'm wondering, there are private enterprise that do that. Should we be doing that in our community, or should we let individual commercial entities rent tubes and kayaks?
You know, we also have a few classes. We're really keeping the inventory for classes first and then renting them out after, which I think is an appropriate use. Most of the equipment we're purchasing is for those classes and not for inventory for rentals. I will say there are big events that they're absolutely using Barry's and other facilities to rent, and it probably takes both of us. But we're definitely not in the business of just having a rental shop. It's really equipment that we're using for other purposes.
Is that equipment stored at the CRC?
It is stored at the outdoor, it was the old park shop in Lower Ross Park
Oh,
out
okay.
there. Yeah, we don't have any of that in the rec center.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? Yeah. Any other questions?
So-
Councilmember Mangum.
Cost-wise with the tubes and the kayaks, how do we compare to, say, Barry's or one of these other vendors?
I wish I had the answer to that. I do not know.
Okay. So I would hate to see us like super close or even overcharging compared to what they're charging. And to Councilmember Cheatham's point, I do agree with that, but I also feel like we have a group of people within our community who would love to experience that, and they can't afford to go to, say, a Barry's or somewhere else. So I'd hate to see us overcharging to where it excludes a group of people from being able to participate.
We have a really good working relationship with ISU Outdoor Rec and Barry's and the facilities that have other opportunities. And we work together at every opportunity to make sure that these resources are available to the community. So I don't feel like there's that type of competition for it. I feel like it's a good relationship at this stage.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Looks like we're at planning.
And we're flying through this.
Hello, Mayor, Council, Brent McLean, Planning Director. So we have a number of changes in our fees, but all of these changes are related to costs that have increased specifically for the Idaho State Journal increased costs. And so some of the changes reflect where we had a single notice that we had in the old fee, but we actually need to do 2 notices. So we increase a few of these items a little bit more than others to reflect that increase in notice requirements that we didn't have accurately reflected. But all of these costs really are associated with the increase in advertising fees. So just so we're covering our costs.
It's kind of a pass-through from us
Just a pass
to
through, yep.
the,
Any other
paper.
questions?
Councilmember Cheatham.
Mr. Mayor, is there any estimate of how close you are to cost recovery?
As far as all of our planning activities,
As far as these specific things?
I think we probably are not charging enough to cover our total activities, not like the building department where they are operating at a fairly even expense to revenue. I think we probably supplement some of those costs. We have a lot of our activities that are based on the public who will just reach out for questions, a lot of things that we do that aren't fee-based. And so a lot of our costs for that exceed our revenues. These fees cover the cost essentially of those applications. And so we're passing the application costs to the developers to make sure that those aren't being borne by the taxpayers. But there's a lot of things that we do outside of fee-based activities.
The questions for Brent? Okay, thank you. Police. I know you heard me back there. I like how they acted like they didn't, that's.
Chief Roger Shy, Pocatello Police. We don't really have any proposed changes on any of our fees. Last year we did a study on what a lot of the other agencies were doing across the area, Idaho Falls, Twin, Coeur d'Alene, and cities our size. And we did not see a need to change any of our fees.
Councilmember Nichols, then Councilmember.
So what type of fees do you charge for? Just an example of a few, maybe.
A lot of them are what Mallory had already talked about. Fingerprint fees, like if someone comes in to get fingerprinted. If somebody comes in and asks for any reports that are Freedom of Information Act and it's over 2 hours, then there's the hourly rate for that. So those fees are all aligned with what our research has been across the state.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Cheatham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I remember in the session this last year, there was discussion of non-residents not paying enough, and they were just inundating departments. Connie's probably familiar with it. This is the clerk. What I don't remember, I know it extended the response time, but I don't remember if it allowed any extra costs to non-residents because of the flood that agencies across the state were getting for public records requests. And I'm just curious if that has been taken into consideration in this.
I can.
If we could, Mr. Mayor.
So last year, they did extend the time from the 3 or 7 days, but for a non-resident, they have an additional time amount, so it's up to 21 days for a resident on their public records request. This year, effective July 1st, now municipalities are able to charge non-residents immediately. It's not after that first 100 pages or after that first initial 2 hours of time at no charge, but a non-resident can be charged immediately for all actual time, all actual copies. And that's why that public record fee has been added for non-Idaho residents.
Okay, so that is included in what's being
is
proposed?
included.
Okay, good. That's what I wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie Kendall, the city clerk. I'm afraid of her. I wasn't going to make her introduce herself.
I didn't even have to move. I didn't get any stuff.
I know, she's got no steps. That was because I'm afraid of you, not because of anything else. Any other questions, council? Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Tom Kirkman, Director of Public Services. Our fee study is based off our rate study, or our fee schedule is based off our rate study. Just a reminder, we went through that a few years ago. We were established a 3% increase per year over the 5-year term of the study. The only large changes, with the exception of the 3% increases, is our new recycling fees that we introduced a few months or a few weeks ago. So if you have any questions about any of that, it's pretty straightforward and some stuff you just have heard recently.
These fees that we just, for the recycling, that we just set, I
A
think,
month ago.
a
or-
month
yeah,
ago.
Not even a month.
Are we changing any of those into October?
Yeah, those will go up by the 3%.
By the 3%?
Because those fees were based off the FY '25
Yeah.
fees that were established. So yes, they will go up by the 3.
Councilmember Cheatham.
Mr. Mayor, when I looked at some of these fees for outside city limit rates, particularly on page 26, I think it is, I guess there's some others, it doesn't seem to matter whether a person lives across the street from the city limits or 10 miles away. And I wonder if that's a fair way to determine an increased cost, if not a transportation charge or distance or something beyond just being outside the city limits.
Yeah, so the way we, if I may, the way we establish that is if they don't have an account in Pocatello and they bring, then that's when the outside city limit fee is.
They bring it to you, you're not going after it.
Correct. We don't go after that.
Okay, that makes
So
more
for
sense.
instance, the city of Chubbuck brings material to us. They have a curbside recycling program. So when they collect it, they bring it to us. We charge them the 1.2.
Okay, I was concerned we were going after it to pick it up, and that would be an inequitable charge if it were a block or 10 miles. Okay.
And I think we ought to charge them more, but I think, I see what you're saying.
I
but-
agree.
Kind of followed with WPC's outside city limits. I think water's at 1.5 and WPC was at 1.2. So we thought we'd start with the lower, and if we need to make adjustments in future years, we can.
Okay, any other questions for Tom? All right, thank you. Erosion and sediment control. A little surprised Jeff didn't jump to this one too when he did the others, but I think he forgot about it.
It's not in alphabetical order. So the only change we really made on here is we removed the slope fees. What we were finding is that our inspections for sloped sites was not really taking any longer than just regular sites. The majority of all of our development is happening on slopes, and so in order to simplify that, we just removed our slope fees and just combined it all into one fee. So, okay.
Questions? Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I did look up that table in the Uniform Building Code.
Okay.
And it's called, our numbers match exactly the table in the Uniform Building Code, and they call that evaluation-based permit schedule. So that's.
So that is actually in the international code, so that should be.
Is it the building code or the international code?
It's the
Residential-
Uniform Building Code, the 1997.
So it's the commercial code.
What's that?
It's the commercial code then.
Yeah,
The Uniform Building
Uniform
Code.
Building Code, yeah. So,
Okay. Pocatello Regional Transit, it looks like there's no proposed changes. Utility B fees, no changes. So Water Department, Justin.
Good morning, Justin Armstrong, Water Superintendent. Yeah, as Tom stated earlier, we are following the study that was put together in 2024 for our rate design. It includes a 3% revenue increase. Everything is designed for capacity fees and customer classes following standard practices and principles of American Water Works Association.
Questions? Justin, if I remember right, when we went through the rate study, their recommendation in, I can't remember if it was water or wastewater, was more than 3%. I want to say in year 1 or 2, it was like 5%, and then it reduced to like 4.5%, and then, kind of bounced back and forth. But we made the conscious decision to leave it at that flat rate, 3% to.
Yeah, so if you recall, the prior 5 years, we had 3%, and then it increased at the tail end to a 3.5%.
Yeah.
We've gotten that down to a flat, consistent 3% throughout the next 5 years, based on our large expenditures with capital needs and replacement of large facilities and infrastructure. So,
I think it's important for the community to know that we're pretty cognizant on what these increases do, and though the rate study at times says we should be charging a little bit more, we really try to keep that and force that down as much as we possibly can. And so you guys do an absolutely incredible job with what the council gives you the opportunity to do, because I know most other cities throughout the state, they're quite a bit more expensive for water. And I love that graph, and I'm assuming we're going to see that in your presentations, where all the other cities, and then we're at the very bottom end of that, I think is good. And that just goes to show how hard we work to keep those down, and how important it's been to the council to do that. So,
yeah, when we get to our budget presentation, I'll have a slide in there that shows kind of where our median customer classes fall in line with our region.
probably my favorite slides. Anyway, Councilmember Cheatham, and then Councilwoman President.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the top of page 29, it talks about residential unmetered customers. And I'm wondering if that is per connection to a water system, or is that, say, for an entire trailer park?
It's basically a flat rate fee. We don't have any customers within this customer class, but they felt that it would be appropriate to at least keep that in there if we, for some reason, had that.
So I guess for my own clarification, would that be charged an apartment complex, the entire thing, because they have one connection to our system, or would it be for each individual unit?
It's typically just based on the connection itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Council President?
I just had a comment about what you were talking about, the kind of averaging that out over the years of the rate study. I appreciate that too, because I think I appreciate your efforts to sort of keep things as low as they can be and keep our costs under control, but also just that people kind of know what to expect, and it's not going up and down every year. Even though in the rate study, those years might be different, I think if we can keep it the same, that at least for 5 years, then people know exactly what to expect.
Well,
That's better.
I'll tell you, I was talking to a mayor just the other day. Yesterday, that their rates gonna jump, I think 19%.
Yeah,
And that's just a big jump.
right. And I
So-
think any sort of unknown big increases like that are, that's difficult for people. So keeping it consistent, that they kind of know what their increase is going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's really our goal with the 5 years outlook and study is outlining all of those capital improvement projects and setting the target rate at the end. Where do we end up with our financial reserves and O&M costs? So that it is kind of just, smooth. We're not seeing those peaks and valleys of, using reserves and being able to fund projects accordingly. So.
And I guess I do have a follow-up question on that. In trying to predict that, has that worked out? I mean, we're talking about for the consumer, the effect on them, but has it worked out well for the department and for the city in terms of
It has. I
your
mean,
costs?
we've been able to kind of weather some of those storms. COVID
Right.
was a big change for us with large increases of costs, for some of our supplies and materials. And so, we try and adjust projects around that, develop efficiencies and other things that we keep our operating costs as low as we can.
Good. Thanks.
Super. Okay, thank you. And I'll tell you the same thing I just said to Justin applies to Levi as well, that with the water pollution control, it's just great that we're able to do that so that the community has an idea of what they're doing. So sorry to.
No, you're good. Levi Adams, Superintendent at WPC. I did hear that 19 was a lot, but I would be happy to take 18 if that was on the table still.
That's right.
Like everyone has said, we're following our rate study. It's a 3% increase over our budget. Is there any questions that we have?
Yes, Councilmember Paulson.
Okay, am I reading this correctly where it's the 7.03 for inside city limits and Chubbuck, and then the proposed for Chubbuck is 7.25, but inside the city is 8.7? Is Chubbuck getting it cheaper than us?
That's bottom of page 30 there.
Yeah, kind of middle of 30 under Chubbuck Municipal, 7.03, then normal strength, 7.03 for inside city limits.
All right, so your 7.03, that's the bill charge.
Oh, okay.
The volume charge, south of I-86, the Chubbuck residents are still in the collection system for the city of Pocatello because there's no sewer lines that cross underneath that freeway for them to transport over into Chubbuck. North of 86, Chubbuck is in charge of their own collection systems, all the pipes in the ground and all the maintenance on that. So that's why those rates are different, the 563 and the 418. Okay. Well, that's the current rates, but
right. Okay, thank you.
And so that's the difference in those two rates.
Okay. Councilmember Cheatham and then Council President Lyric.
I want to, if I could, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to follow up on Hayden's comment. The 703 is also a monthly service charge per bill. They appear to be the same thing, yet we're charging Pocatello residents, proposing to charge $1.45 more than we are at Chubbuck. I'm confused by that.
I'm not seeing where you're seeing that.
Okay, up above, it says residential, multifamily, commercial, and all others, the monthly service charge per bill is currently $7.03. It's proposed to go to $8.70. When I go down to Chubbuck, the monthly service charge per bill is currently $7.03, and the proposed is $7.25. It seems
That is, what is that? I'm sorry, I don't have the rate study. That was a typo from the thing. It was not changed. We found that yesterday and got it to finance. So that charge was just swapped over.
Oh, we have,
Yeah, that 870 was the increase in the Chubbuck rates. That number's incorrect. We had found that yesterday and got it by, I think.
So
Mandy didn't
Pocatello,
quite get that going.
725?
What's that?
Pocatello is 725 and Chubbuck
I don't
is
know what
8.
Pocatello
Oh.
is right now.
That's what it's
Oh,
highlighted.
it's on this sheet.
Yeah, it's on, yeah.
Uh,
You have it
So
in
the
your-
slide shows off.
And you think.
Sorry about that.
Exhibit-
Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Okay.
Okay.
There we go.
So that should be the 725, not 870. I'm sure that will be
Inside
corrected
seat.
before it's posted, yeah.
Inside city limits, 725, outside city limits, 870.
They got swapped.
Yeah.
Those numbers, when it was entered in, for these guys, it was just, the numbers were transposed.
I'm surprised Chubbuck isn't more.
Yeah, I'm always surprised that Chubbuck isn't more, because we have a pretty big asset out there, and I'm with Levi. I'll take the 18% on Chubbuck's side there. I think our attorneys decided we couldn't. Are they in here? Let's do it while they go. Oh, he's back there.
He's back there.
Is that right?
We're at where we need to be with
We can't go more?
Can be.
Can we go more?
It's based on the agreement.
Do you know, would you please come up here so we can, we don't even know who you are. I did start it. I didn't think you were back there. You're hiding in the corner. I was like, I can't believe we don't have an attorney in our meeting, but no, we did.
I'm here. Jared Johnson, City Attorney. So the rates that we have with Chubbuck regarding WPC are, like Levi said, we have the north of I-15, south of I-15, various billing processes. It's all very different because we have an agreement with Chubbuck. I think it goes through 2027. Does that sound right? That lays all this out based on usage and limits, and we review that regularly. And right now, we're still within the terms of that contract, and we need to stay within that contract term. The amount that we charge them is based on our rates with the modifier for Chubbuck that's in that contract.
Right.
So in 2027, can that increase more than 3% annually?
Yeah, in 2027, we can reevaluate the entire agreement and do what we feel is necessary in negotiations with them based on usage, based on capacity. All those factors can play into it, and we can do a lot more at that time. We have a lot more flexibility.
Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I've got Councilmember Mangum and then Councilmember Cheatham.
So in order to increase charge on Chubbuck, we would have to increase charge ourselves on us here, correct? Is that what you had said?
Not necessarily. I mean, it has to all be based on the service provided. That's what all these fees are, is a fair amount based on the cost of the services that we're providing. But maybe the modifier that we apply to non-resident or to Chubbuck based on the new agreement might allow us to go more than the increase that we have currently under the new agreement. That's what I'm saying.
So what is the modifier on this current agreement?
What you're seeing in the proposal.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, Councilmember Cheatham?
Mr. Mayor, a couple of years ago, there was concern that Chubbuck was exceeding the limits that are allowed in that contract, and they made some adjustments, as I understand. How close to those limits are we currently?
Currently, they're within that limit. They've made some improvements to their system, which has kind of brought their numbers down. They've done some different things. We're working with Chubbuck to help them with their system over there. So right now, they're not. Occasionally, the load increases, and there is an existing fee that we do charge them extra for that if they do exceed those loads. But that happens rarely. So it is they're not there yet. So it's not close enough to trigger opening up that agreement yet. Because that was the big thing. Is once you hit a certain point on that agreement, you could open it up sooner than the term of the agreement.
Okay.
So they were close, but then they fixed their issues.
If I could follow up, Mr. Mayor, how close is the plant to limits of what it can handle at its current state?
The plant is in very good shape right now. We're running around 7 million gallons a day. Design flow is 14, so we're about halfway there with peak flows up to 22 million gallons. We're always keeping an eye on the future, making sure that there's going to be room for expansion. We always try to keep things upgraded and sized correctly so that we can expand. All of the new construction we've put in have been designed to handle a 21 million gallon average flow. So there is, when we say the average flow is 14, it's because certain areas are bottlenecked at that 14. But we know what is going to trigger an expansion at those certain areas. And we're not there yet, but we always keep an eye on it.
Has there been, if I could follow up one more time, has there been any change in the pollutant particulars coming with the increased flow? Phosphorus or whatever it might be?
How long you got? We can talk about this for a long time. What has actually changed with most wastewater is it's become a higher strength. There's more nutrients in the water. Everything goes, you're still getting all the same particulates and everything coming through, but with low flow showers, low flow toilets, everybody's trying to be as efficient as they can with the water. The strength of the wastewater increases. So the plant can handle the flow. It can also handle the amount of the strength of the wastewater that's coming in. I mean, we've done a lot of work to really expand how we're doing. We just opened up our dewatering building process, so now we don't have to rely on that storage lagoon. So we'll be able to do, moving forward on that, we'll be able to, it's the first step moving towards composting, so then we can move our biosolids beneficially within the city rather than out on the agricultural fields now. So we're moving forward. We're in good shape right now. We can handle pretty much anything that's going to come to us within reason, obviously. So the plant's in really good shape.
Good, thank you.
Okay, I have Council President Lurick and then Councilmember Nichols.
Well, my question originally was, can we charge Chubbuck more? But I think we addressed that fully, so I'll let that one go. But I have a new question following up on what Councilmember Cheatham was asking you with Chubbuck. You said, so I know before, when they were either bumping up against their limit or maybe exceeding it, part of the problem was what was in it, and they made changes to deal with that. But when we, and you said now they rarely go above that, but when they do, is there, what do we do in response to that? Do we do anything?
There's an additional strength fee. For
Okay.
example, all of our industries are charged by the strength of the wastewater that comes in, the phosphorus level, the nitrogen levels. So if Chubbuck exceeds those, they are charged the same rate that an industry would be if they exceeded what they were allotted amount of.
Okay.
Super. Councilmember Nichols.
So how much of that flow is attributable to Chubbuck?
Chubbuck right now sits at about 1 million gallons a day.
Okay, of 9 total, you
Of
said?
7.
Oh, 7 total, okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, super. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we covered zoo and jumped the gun on zoo, so we covered that, so super.
HR.
All right, thank you very much. Council, before we move to agenda item 4, we've been here for quite a while. We're going to go ahead and take a break for a few minutes, and we'll be back.
5, isn't it? We're going to 5.
Got some cashews in my car.
Minutes after the break, we'll go ahead and continue on with agenda item number 5, fiscal year 2026 benefits and employee. Heather Buchanan, Human Resources Director, and AJ Argyle, GBS Benefits, will give a presentation regarding the following: medical plan, dental plan, employee assistance plan, Health Joy, 30-hour employee benefit cost, tuition reimbursement, employee compensation, overtime adjustment. You get enough in there?
You know, if you gave me time, I could come up with
You
some local numbers.
You would.
Always willing.
Yeah.
Throw a few more.
Thank you.
Heather Buchanan.
AJ Argyle.
So I'm here to talk about compensation and benefits, which is part of our overall personnel budget build. This is early in the budget process, and we have specific action items so that we can finalize the salary projection file, so that finance can then roll that into the budget. And when the departments come before you the first week of June, these numbers with your direction will be included. So we do have 8 action items today. You can take action on those as we go through each item, or you can do them at the end, whatever council's preference is. And we're going to start with AJ's presentation.
So first thing we're going to talk about is how is the city of Pocatello insured? So as you know, we're currently fully insured through Pacific Source Health Plans. Current experience numbers led us to stay with Pacific Source. Experience was running pretty warm, to say the least. Current experience is running at 102.7, essentially 103%. What that means essentially, for every dollar that we gave Pacific Source Health Plans, they're paying out $1.03 in claims. And they're allowed through PPACA to take up to 15 cents on every dollar for administration. And so they didn't even do that. So they were running 103 essentially without even taking the 15 cents on every dollar for the administration. So.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask-
Okay, hold on. We've got Councilmember Nichols and then Councilmember Cheatham.
So the 103 is to date,
Through April.
through April? Okay.
Okay, Councilmember Cheatham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't understand the run-in of Blue Cross claims.
So the 102 does not include the administration or the run-in. So what happens with Blue Cross is we start with Blue Cross on 10/1, right? And it usually takes anywhere from 30 to 60 days for those claims to come in. So what happened is we ended with Blue Cross on 9/30. On 9/30, Blue Cross didn't stop paying claims for the city of Pocatello. Claims kept coming in through October, November, and even some in December, and it even usually leaks into January a little bit. So we quit paying Blue Cross of Idaho 9/30, but claims kept coming through and hitting Blue Cross's bottom line past that time. So that's what's called the run-in, because it's running in from one plan to another plan. And that is not included in that 102.7 number there. We didn't include the Blue Cross run-in with that.
I may follow up. So it's doctor visits or health things that happened prior to 10/1.
Correct. It's
But
not
they
that-
just didn't get the bill yet.
Exactly, yeah, because there's a lag in that billing time. It can take 30 to 60 days for those bills to go out, as I'm sure you've seen. So,
Thank you.
any other questions on that?
Nope.
Okay. So normally you'd see a fairly large increase, double digit for that. One thing we did do in moving to Pacific Source Health Plans is we asked for a rate cap on the second year. And we always want to do that to kind of protect us from, a big increase, someone buying our business for a year and getting that. And we were able to secure a 9.9% rate cap on your plan. And we are going to utilize that based on the experience. I think that is the best route for the city of Pocatello, unless anyone else feels differently and wants us to go out and explore that. We do have a fairly proactive approach to your guys' plan. We have our data analytics system in place. All your claims are reviewed by our physicians and by our pharmacists. And anything that looks out of place or anything, they come back to us, we go back to carriers, and we try to resolve that. We do have a much more aggressive plan design than we've had in the past. We do have 4 tiers on the prescription drugs. We've increased deductibles, out-of-pockets, things of that nature going forward. And we do have case and care management mandatory on your plan. What that means is if a member actually qualifies, and that could be an employee or dependent, for case or care management, they have to take that in order to get the wellness benefit, the HRA contribution. So if they qualify for a case or care management, and you're talking about less than 1 or 2% of your population, but if they do qualify for that and they deny that, then we would notify HR and they would no longer get that wellness benefit going forward. So Pacific Source Health Plans, you got a 9.9% increase as we discussed. The dental is going to take a 9% increase. We moved to MetLife Dental 4 years ago, or was it 5? 4 years ago. And our rates, Heather actually went back and researched, and the dental rates that we got were as good as they were back in 2006. And so what's happening is MetLife is just kind of catching up on those rates. I tried to fight them and hold their feet to the fire on that one a little bit. Told them we were going to bid, told them we're going to move it. And I basically got told, we hate to see them go, but good luck. So we know we've got really good rates. I really thought I could leverage that a little bit, but they understand that they're not making any money and they want to get some of that back. So,
Okay, Councilmember Nichols?
yeah.
So if we had not negotiated the second year 9.9% cap, based on our experience, and if we had just had to do it without that guarantee, any idea what our increase would be as a percentage?
Yeah, I'd probably rather have that discussion offline, to be honest with you. It's a big number. It's not good. That's something, if you want to grab me after, I definitely want to discuss that. But yeah, it wouldn't be pretty. It would be mid double digits. It'd be something that the city hasn't seen probably since the Aetna days, to be honest with you. So.
And that's a bad word.
Yeah.
Councilmember Cheatham?
Would that mean that next year is going to be a tough year?
Next year, that'd be an understatement, to be honest with you. Next year is going to be a really rough year. Heather and I have already started having discussions on that. I've already had several discussions with several carriers. I don't see any way we aren't going out for RFP. We've also, and I'll get to this later in the slide, but we're kind of heading that direction. We've also started discussions with local facilities and providers about narrowing the network and about getting deeper discounts. We're getting really aggressive, to your point, because we see the light at the end of that tunnel and we want to try to head that off before we get there. So we are being proactive with that. We just haven't got it all shored up yet, to be honest with you. So we are working on that and we are looking forward towards next year. So.
Thank you.
If anyone had any pull in the legislature, it'd be neat to make some
Single payer what?
some changes. We have an HR director that's trying to run in some legislation. Just
I have 17 years till I
Shameless-
retire. That
just a shameless
legislation is
plug.
ready every year.
We've had some discussions.
yes, indeed, no question. Okay, sorry.
No, you're fine. MetLife Vision, there was no increase. And then the Employee Assistance Program, that's the short-term counseling program, that is taking a little bit of an increase from 349 to 371. But we are tweaking the police. I think that'll offset the majority of that increase. And then the life insurance, we're actually in a rate lock through next year. And so there's going to be no change on those rates either. So. We talk about experience a lot in medical. What does experience mean? Basically, that's reporting or claims data that, applies specifically to the city of Pocatello. Like we talked a little bit about just a second ago, the loss ratio, we talk about that a lot. The loss ratio is essentially premium paid in versus claims paid out. Like we talked about, 100% loss ratio would mean for every dollar that goes in, $1 is paid out in claims. But keep in mind that they can take 15 cents, like we said, on those dollars, and they can apply that towards administration, and that's based on the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. So if you hear us talking about a large claimant is anyone that has claims over $25,000. That is not employee only. That can be a spouse and a dependent as well. And when you hear us talk about trend is essentially medical inflation. And in Idaho, depending on the carrier, depending on the day you talk to them, that varies anywhere from 8.5% to 10%. And that is actually a blend of both your medical and your prescription. They're calling medical significantly lower than that. It's your prescription that's driving a lot of that right now, as I'm sure you've heard. Nationally, they're saying they're right around 9.5% too for trend. So when you throw in your loss ratio, administration, everything else, you run about 142%. Claims were actually 4.99 million through March. You had 17 large claimants. What's really driving you guys right now is the large claimants. And if you look at the comparison between fiscal year 24 and 25, we averaged $85,000 for each large claimant, and now we're averaging $138,000 for one. We did have one large claimant that ran $1.6 million. So that's the one that really hurt us more than anything. And then if you look at your prescription costs too, they're running 15% currently and 21% for last year. But the difference in that really, your inpatient is what fluctuates that a lot. Because our inpatient ran so high, it'll drive the percentage of what your total claims paid were down for your prescription drugs. But really that doesn't mean the utilization is down. What really means is your inpatient is up so high that it drove that number down a little bit. So.
Councilmember Paulson, AJ?
Sorry, can you go back one? If the total claims are $3-some million less than the previous year, why is the loss ratio 30% higher-ish? So
I'm
total
sorry.
claims 4.99 million.
Yeah.
FY '25.
So that's just October through March.
Oh,
That's just
sorry.
October through March. So we don't have April in there, and then we actually, that'll run all the way through September is what that's going to run. So that's what it's running right now. And that $1.6 million claim is included in that, and that's what's driving a huge chunk of that right now. So this is just the executive summary on the reporting that we do with your HR department every quarter. If you can look up there at the top, you can see the medical and prescription claims at 8.1, medicals around the 6.4, and the prescriptions 1.67. That also shows you how many subscribers, and that's employees that are on the plan. And then it also shows your members, and that's spouses and dependents as well. Shows your loss ratio there, the 115%. Then if you go down that second bullet point there, shock claimant costs, that $25,000, those are up $1.25 million. When you compare that to the last 12 months before that, this is a running 12, so they're up 32%. Those large claimants are what's driving us more than anything. Those are shock loss claims. And the thing with large claimants too is a lot of those, and especially the ones in your group, we've sat down with HR numerous times and gone through that list. These are things you can't prevent. We have the wellness program, we have the blood draws, we're doing all those kinds of things, I mean, sometimes cancers happen, sometimes accidents happen, preemie babies, all those kind of things. The things that you guys have on your large claimant list aren't things that we can prevent through a traditional wellness program. So, I mean, sometimes these are things you just kind of have to weather the storm, and that's really kind of what we're dealing with right now, so. Your other benefits, MetLife, Symetra, and HealthJoy, the EAP, like we kind of talked about for a second, that will now match the active employee plan. The police actually had additional visits and things and a mandatory visit, and they weren't utilizing that, so we're going to pull that back, and that should offset the increase for the the active employees. Dental and vision, like we talked about, is going to stay with MetLife. Life insurance is just going to renew with the rate lock with Symetra. Your HealthJoy rate is currently $4.88. That is going to go up either to $5.12 or $5.03, depending on whether you want to do a 1-year or a 2-year renewal. That's really at your discretion. If you were able to get onto the state plan, I don't think it makes a lot of sense to do the 2-year. I'd probably do the 1-year just to be safe, but there is a nice little discount there if you want to look at it, but it's not huge either. And then we've talked a little bit about adding the telemedicine back in to the health plan, into the HealthJoy. I can argue that one either way, to be honest with you. The cost is kind of prohibitive a little bit, but honestly, the utilization is much better when we look at it compared. You're still doing okay, but you can see the numbers starting to trail off a little bit. I think if we kept the telemedicine outside of the HealthJoy app for another couple of years, I think you'd see that utilization cut in half, probably in the next 2 or 3 years, but not anything immediate. I think it's slowly trail off. So we've had issues with employees being charged co-payments, not being able to get coverage. There's just been a few things that I think is starting to discourage the employees, and we're starting to see that trend a little bit. But it would be an increased cost to the city of Pocatello, where we currently get that for free from Pacific Source. So essentially, the conclusion, we're going to stay with Pacific Source, which is the majority, obviously, of your healthcare costs because of that rate cap. And we honestly would have gotten a much larger increase with that, and that's why we didn't shop that. We know we're going to be shopping next year, so we're kind of saving that for next year. And then all the other benefits we recommend renewing with the current carriers as well.
Sorry, I'm getting blinded out the window. I'm just gonna shut the shade.
Can maybe Gene or somebody shut that shade?
That's blinding.
Thank you. Thank you, Chantel. You reach it? Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so our first 4 action items are all around benefits. Action item 1 is the renewal with Pacific Source at the 9.9%. The estimated increase is about $828,000 based on the salary projection file snapshot. Action item 2 is the dental increase. That's about $28,000. Action item 3, this is the one where AJ said we kind of are going to see a wash. Police, we have negotiated them back to the regular plan, not the enhanced plan. So even though we are increasing our cost because EAP is going up, their cost is reducing significantly. So we're actually going to save $21,000 there. And then action item 4. So this one's a little bit odd. Currently, Pacific Source is paying for HealthJoy. They gave us a check, we deposited it into the wellness account, and we've been paying that every month. They are not doing that in fiscal year 26, so this is a new cost the city will incur. I put the 1-year renewal. That will cost us about $29,000, and if we choose to add the telemedicine, that's an additional $15,000 for a total cost of $45,000.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
So, AJ, you said that Pacific Source is already offering telemedicine, correct?
Correct.
So there's no need to add the other one?
You don't need to. I just worry that the utilization, it's starting to trail off. It's a lot harder to use. It's a lot clunkier, I think. It's not in the HealthJoy app, and I think the employees were used to just being able to hit a button and use it, and it was really quick and it was really easy, and now they've got some hoops they've got to jump through, and I just worry that's going to drop off, and that might drive the experience a little bit.
When you say drop off, you mean drop off from the Pacific Source usage or off of the HealthJoy usage?
The employees not using it as much.
Okay.
Because it's harder to get to.
From the Pacific Source
Yeah.
side, okay.
Yeah.
The biggest issue we're having is it's supposed to be a $0 copay to employees. They're being charged $50, and that is not supposed to be occurring. They've fixed that once. We're having that problem again. It's very hard, especially our example that we use is we have employees who have college-age dependents who they use that rather than going to a local clinic that they don't know. And a college student standing there going, I don't have $50 to pay for this because it's cheaper to walk into an urgent care for $25. So we're struggling with, telemedicine does not hit our experience. It exists outside of our current costs. But if people aren't using it, our costs are going to go up. So we're trying to balance that $15,000 versus lower utilization and higher plan costs.
Well, and the idea is to have that, that option so that we aren't going to the clinic or we're not going to the emergency room when we don't necessarily have to, because you can utilize that and get everything you need.
For many items, yes.
Yeah.
So
AJ said you could argue it both ways. I kind of am leaning toward the put it in and cover it where it is easy to use for employees and dependents. Councilmember Mangum?
So if we make this the expense of the $15,000 to add that telemedicine in, and we see employees start to use that more, will that help to offset or decrease that cost with Pacific Source, or will we stay in the same regardless?
No, it should, yeah.
Ideally, it would decrease, but it, kind of worst case scenario would kind of help keep it even.
Yeah. I mean, you're not going to see like $100,000 return from that $15,000 investment, but you might see 30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Councilmember Cheatham?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've never used telemedicine. Could one of you describe to me the process and the kinds of things that they're able to diagnose or services that they offer?
So I'm an accident-prone human, so we will use me as an example because I use it all the time. I cut my finger quite badly working in the shop with my husband, even though he told me not to do something. Guess what? I did it anyway. So I cleaned my finger and I took pictures of it and I contacted telemedicine and I attached those pictures and the doctor looked at them before they called me. It can be a phone call or a video call, and he was able to assess whether I needed to go in for stitches or if I could just use a butterfly bandage to cover that. That's an example of a small trauma item that did not result in stitches.
Can they prescribe?
They can,
Yes.
certain medications.
No psychotropic drugs, so you can't do any antidepressants, anti-anxiety, sleeping medications, anything like that. The example I like to use, it happened in another city down the road too, is there's a family, they had 5 kids, all 5 kids got pink eye. So you're talking about $25 a piece for each one of them. Here, there, it was a $30 copayment, so you're talking about $150, and you've got to, get 5 kids into the car and take them there, whereas it was a simple telemedicine call, got the prescription, saved the plan money, saved the employee money, and they were off and rolling. It's honestly, telemedicine is for things when generally you have an idea of what you've got going on, or maybe a rash or something like that. It's just kind of the acute care, not anything serious, just something like, I mean, how often do you go to the doctor, you've got a sinus infection or something, you just need the antibiotic, right? You're just going to get it. This is a way for you to be able to get that without paying the copayment, without going and being around other sick people, and without wasting money on the plan too, so.
Council President?
Give you a couple of examples too. I've done a lot of follow-up appointments, so it's exactly what you're saying, where you already know what the situation is, but you can then follow up by a video call instead of going into the office. And even to the point where, like, with my back surgeon, I mean, I had to stand in front of the camera and like make certain motions and everything, but because we had done these things in the office, we both already kind of knew what to do and what he was looking for and everything. But so any like follow-up, like any medications that need to be prescribed, but also just following up on conditions and things like that. So it saves, I mean, obviously it saves money, but it saves a lot of time too. I mean, it was just easier when you can do that from home.
All right, Councilmember Nichols and then Councilmember Cheatham.
So I'm not sure I completely understand here. So Pacific Source provides telemed. presently.
Telemedicine for free, yes, through yes, yep.
But their app is clunky and the usage is tailing off, and that might drive our experience, right?
Correct.
So you're proposing that we do what? That we hire an independent company to do the telemed, the Health Joy?
So we had telemedicine actually included in the Health Joy app several years ago, and even before, last year with Blue Cross, because they didn't include telemedicine. When we went to Pacific Source, they actually include Teladoc, which is who we'd probably actually use, but they include Teladoc as part of their plan. So we thought we could save that $260 per employee per month cost, and so we decided to use it. I've actually had other cities that have chosen not to use it. City of Idaho Falls, down the road, they actually don't use it. They just keep using the Health Joy app. But so what we did is we just pulled it out of Health Joy, and then we just allowed it to move into Pacific Source. And so you register a little bit different. It's a little bit different. Instead of just going directly to your Health Joy app, if you've got that download and hitting a button, request a visit with a provider, you actually have to go through, you have to register online, you have to go through Pacific Source's kind of hoops. And then you also have to put in a credit card, as Heather, pointed out, which it's supposed to be free, but then they have actually charged employees a few times. We've had to go out and issue refunds for them. So. And we're just worried that word's going to start getting around more and more, and less people will use it. And we're already starting to see it trail off a little bit.
Right,
so,
I see. Okay.
So we're trying to head that off is what we're trying to do.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Councilmember Cheatham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So do you have to do that process every time or just one time to get in the system?
Just one time to get in the system, and then you should go be good.
And a second follow-up, we've got 15 city employees sitting here. I'm curious how many of you have used or would use telemedicine? Can I see a show of, more than I thought.
Yeah, I didn't include me in that employee, but yeah, it's a great thing. Like I say, if it were up to me, we would add it to this. It's easier and it's better. So
It's much smoother.
Council, what would you like to do? You want to make motions, or do you want to wait till the end of the presentation? I would say we just do it while we're thinking about it, but,
I'd like to go ahead.
okay?
Do we want to take them all separately?
You go 1 through 4,
Or
as far as
can I
I'm
make one
concerned.
motion?
One motion for all, 1 through 4, if you want to do all of
I'd
the
like
those.
to move to proceed with what is being proposed for items 1 through 4 and add the telemedicine back into Health Joy.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Council President Lyric and a second by Councilmember Mangum. Connie, could you please call the roll?
Lurick,
Yes.
Mangum,
Yes.
Cheatham,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Paulson,
Yes.
Thank you.
One
Okay.
question.
Yes.
On item 4, do you want to fund that 44,000 through salary projections by person, or do you want to add that to the wellness budget and have us adjust the interfund? I only ask because it makes a difference for finance when they build. Also, it's manual reconciliation. It's kind of easier for wellness to pay it at once rather than us break it down by person. But we can do either way.
I'd like the
Do wellness, do it the easy way. But
I was
Councilman-
gonna see what you recommended.
So we'll adjust the interfund for wellness to include the app and the telemedicine,
Yeah.
which saves us all a lot of work.
First time you were quiet about something like that until after the vote, and so.
Yeah, I wanted it
you
to go
panicked
through
me.
before I
You
asked.
panicked me. I got a question. Like, oh.
I was like, wait a minute, you didn't tell us that.
Action item 5 is kind of an oddity that we bring forward. We have less than 5 employees who work 30 hours a week. Those employees get full-time medical rates, but they get half-time dental and vision rates. It's kind of confusing. We would like to standardize to what ACA uses, which means they would all be considered full-time rates once they hit the 30 hours. This is a change for only the dental and the vision. Cost estimate to the city is under $2,000 for a fiscal year.
This is,
What would you like
this is
to
an
do?
action item.
Yeah.
I would move to approve the change to action item 5, moving from half pay or half benefits to full
Second.
For 30-hour.
for 30-hour employees as specified.
Okay, so we have a motion by Councilmember Mangum and a second by Council President Cheatham, whoa, I backed up, didn't I? Council President Lurick, sorry about that. Connie, could you please call the roll?
Mangum?
Yes.
Lurick?
Yes.
Cheatham?
Yes.
Nichols?
Yes.
Yes.
Action item 6, this $111,000 was included in the presentation you saw earlier from finance. So we do have a policy that allows for tuition reimbursement. All of these funds get moved into a specific line, and then we utilize that through the year based on the employee. I broke it down by fund type so you can see how much we are requesting. We do anticipate that we will have some savings in fiscal year 25, and once we pay for the spring semester, because those grades are just starting to trickle in, we will probably be able to decrease this by about $20,000. But it's easier to take money out than it is to add money in. So we would ask to fund this at the $111,000, and we will work with finance to adjust that number based on need once we get closer.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I would move to approve adding the $111,000 for tuition reimbursement as requested by HR.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Mangum and a second by Council President Lurick. Any discussion here, Councilmember Nichols?
Yeah.
And then after Nichols, Councilmember Paulson.
I'm interested in why we're doing these action items now. Is this for the purposes of just building the budget?
Yes.
We don't have our budget built yet, but we're
It's to
we're
build it
spending
into
money.
the costs.
Okay,
Yeah, we have to know what they are.
right,
We have to let them know.
Okay.
I'm expensive to bring at the end.
right. Okay. All right, I understand. Thank you.
Councilmember Paulson.
From previous years, how is $111,000 different?
It's almost double than what we requested last year. We are seeing an uptick in utilization in this program. Last year, I think we funded at about 57,000. I think we had about actually 70,000 of requests, but we didn't need to pull all that money, so we didn't. But we're at least 50,000 higher than we were last year.
And then one other question with that. Why is this university, college, or is it technical skill?
Yeah, it's for any degreed program.
Okay, thank you.
You have to be accredited.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilmember Cheatham?
So would that include less than 4-year degrees, associate degrees,
Yes.
technical certificates, any of those kind of
Yes.
programs?
It can't be related to the employee's job, and it must be done outside work hours. It's non-compensated time the employee spends.
Okay.
Council President?
I just wanted to clarify that too, that it does not relate to training or certificates or anything that's related to
This
your
is outside training
job.
and certifications.
Right.
Okay. All right, we have a motion by Mangum and a second by Lurick. Connie, could you please call the roll?
Yes.
Lurick,
Yes.
Cheatham,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Paulson,
Yes.
Compensation I have boiled down to one slide with two tiny tables on it. You're all welcome. This is $66 million. So when we build the personnel budget, all of these items that you've seen go into that budget. So some items you've approved have already been built in, some are going to be an additional cost, so this number is going to move. The base file, so the snapshot that finance took, cost about $62 million. A step movement takes us to 64 million. And then we applied a 1.5% table adjustment to the general employee scale, the contracted 1.5 with the fire union, and that took us to 64 million. The final file rolls in the massive amount of changes we had with police negotiations. That's an entirely new salary table. They don't get a step because we're doing table placement, which takes the place of the step. So that is the one difference when you look down through the different employee groups. So your overall cost increase is about 3.3 million. And that covers all employees at all classes on all pay scales that are benefit eligible.
Questions, council?
So I'm looking through numbers.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah. Council President Lurick.
unless anybody has any questions, I would like to make a motion to approve.
I have one question. So we're not including steps for the final with police.
Police got placement.
Okay.
Fire is getting a step.
Okay. So, and this has nothing to do with this year or this next budget, but will there be steps in the next budget session, next year
For who?
for police?
Yes,
Okay. So we're just doing the placement this,
correct,
And
because they're
then
going
we'll
to
do-
a whole new table.
okay. That makes sense.
The fire did last year.
Right.
And so they did placement last year, first step this year.
Placement years are very expensive.
Yeah.
So the steps are if council approves a step next year, and the adjustment, the 1.5 adjustment is if council approves that.
For general
For
employees.
general employees, yeah, the fire and police unions are locked in for that. Other questions?
So I move to approve.
Most of this is already, well, this is revenue. Yeah, this is revenue. Any other questions? Okay. Council President?
I move to approve the compensation step and table movement as proposed.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Council President Lurick and a second by Councilmember Mangum. Any other discussion, council? Any other thoughts? Okay, Connie, could you please call the roll?
Lurick,
Yes.
Mangum,
Yes.
Cheatham,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Paulson,
Yes.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor?
yes.
If I could just make one comment. I appreciate all the work that was done this year on setting up the new step table for the police, and also last year, the new step table for the fire department. And I think both now are in really good places. And so thanks for all the work that you and our employees did to get us to that point. I think going forward, it'll make things better and easier. Yep.
This is probably the right time. Well, it doesn't matter. I'm going to do it anyway. If it's the right time or not. Heather had an extremely heavy lift this year with the police union, and she did an absolutely amazing job. I spoke with the union. They're extremely happy with how this ended up and where it ended up. Heather represented exactly what we asked her to do, and it was just did an incredible job. And so I just want to publicly thank her for that hard work. She really, truly went above and beyond, and had very little help, if any, sitting at the table. And so just a great job, Heather. Thank you.
Thanks. Item 8, so we have never done this with a budget, but every year staff asks for it, so I'm going to try. Every year we adjust the tables, not every year, but we grant steps, but we never affect our overtime budgets. About 3 years ago, we did a heavy lift with council and we went through everyone's overtime budget, on-call, call-out, seasonal, variable, and we started to correct those numbers to at least get us within the last decade. Going forward, we would like to start adjusting with council approval each year the overtime budget only to go up by the average cost of our pay increase. So with the police placement, with the table adjustments, and with the step, that's 3.79% for this fiscal year. To the overtime budget lines individually, that's $87,000. So I'm looking for permission to adjust every overtime line by 3.79%.
This is just really bringing it up to what we're already spending.
We're still losing ground, but some, like my department's $263. But I have one employee that is eligible for overtime. We know the police overtime budget and we know fire's overtime budget are currently not correct. Fire doesn't have a full year of data on their new table. And we're still finalizing with the police union and getting into the new system what theirs will look like. You will see bigger adjustments there next year probably, but we are just trying to keep departments whole so that they can continue to operate.
Councilmember Mangum?
Approximately how far off are we? I mean, you see 3.79, but I don't know if that's.
Well, that's just to catch up with what you
Legit.
approved on number 8.
Okay.
7. Sorry. How far behind are we? Well, it depends on how much snow we get a year.
Okay.
But I'm guessing we're probably 10 to 12% short in our departments for overtime. A lot of them go into their operating when they have really rough years or really big projects that run into unexpected results. You rarely see departments come ask for more money in this area. Sometimes we do take the money out of vacant positions. Sometimes the mayor will help us move money around that way. So we're not affecting their capital needs, because for our satellite, anyone who's in the field, their capital needs are massive. We also know there's not a lot of money. 87,000 it's a big ask for me to come without the departments asking for it individually. We're just trying to help build ground there.
Councilmember Nichols?
So which departments generally use overtime?
Well, everyone.
Okay.
Certain departments use it heavier. Street uses it heavily if they have a bad winter. They also use it during paving. Water has some very expensive needs that arise. Police and fire are obviously our by far biggest users. Those are hard to actually anticipate. A lot of it depends on staffing levels, but community events can affect those. A high fire season affects those. Parks operates very close to theirs, but again, going into peak season, those costs can go up unexpectedly. The cemetery is an example. We never quite know what we're going to run into out there, whether it's irrigation issues or rock trucks. So you just kind of we ebb and flow with it. Most of the administrative offices, for example, the mayor and council office, you have deputy clerks that are hourly. They take a lot of minutes at meetings. We don't always know how long those meetings will take. The employees get to choose overtime or comp time, and we have to offer that. So we're never sure what people are going to, which preference they're going to have. But most departments operate very close to it and limit their overtime as much as they can.
Great, thank you.
Councilmember Cheatham?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. How much comp time do we use instead of overtime?
I don't have specific numbers on that for you. It can change per pay period. People can change it on a per pay period basis.
So it's the choice of the employee?
It is.
Why?
FLSA standards. Oh, if I could eliminate comp time altogether, I would, so it would just be a simple calculation. But under the Department of Labor, there are certain Fair Labor Standard Acts we have to comply with, and comp time traditionally has been a government benefit.
I've been wanting to limit comp time for years, and you just.
Before I started, the council had bought down the comp time bank, so we'd have a much lower threshold but we haven't revisited that. It is defined in the 2 union contracts, though.
Mr. Mayor. Yes. I would move to approve the adjustment for overtime as requested by HR for the $87,873.32.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Mangum, a second by Council President Lurick. Any other discussion, council? Seeing none, Connie, could you please call the roll?
Mangum.
Yes.
Yes.
Cheatham.
No.
Nichols.
Yes.
Paulson.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And that is the end of the personnel budget. I am gone the week of budgeting, so you now get to hear from HR and Wellness as the single department that's an ED that needs to go ahead of time.
Cool, we're moved to agenda item number 6.
And it's 4 slides, so it's not too torturous.
Well.
A little torturous. You've survived worse.
That's debatable.
So Heather Buchanan, Human Resources Director. I'm here to present on both the Human Resources and the Wellness budget. Human Resources has 5 employees. We have not shifted that FTE. We have no seasonal money. We have no variable or part-time employee money, and we have $263 in overtime, now increased by 3.97%. Expenditures in Human Resources. The vast majority of HR's costs do rest with personnel. The projection file from finance shows that HR will be about a $611,000 increase, not increase, let's go with increase, $611,000 total. Operations shows at 147, 67,000 of that is my operational budget. The rest, I believe, is interfund, bringing HR's total for fiscal year 26 to $759,000.
Councilmember Cheatham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could you define for me operations in the HR department, what that encompasses?
So we cover small things like the Employee Recreation Council. It's a very small amount. Office supplies, training platforms, outside training we bring in, the management training program. HR has to do a lot of training, especially federally. There's been a lot of changes in the last little bit, so it takes a lot of training to keep up on that. We don't have a lot. We do have money set aside for some consulting services. We pay a lot of dues and membership fees for national groups we keep subscriptions to. We have some very expensive subscriptions where we get monthly updates on federal and state laws. Most of ours is kind of soft costs. You're not seeing much capital from us. Pens, we're mostly services, and we push a lot of paper, which means most of our costs are usually considered a soft cost. It's not equipment that you're bringing in. I don't really depreciate anything, maybe a copier. But that's kind of most of what we do. Yeah, I'm looking at individual lines. Like consulting, I have $3,000 that we had to change consulting companies because ours closed. $3,000 will cover 1 job review. I have not asked for more money there because that's just a lot of money to pay, but I can't find another vendor. Things like that. Office supplies, I have like $2,000. Not a ton of things that would be substantive for council.
Thank you.
The wellness program, this is a per person cost that we have per month. For the first time, we are asking to use money out of our reserves for fiscal year 26. We would like to purchase 1 year on a wellness app. The $14,000 is the high-end cost. That's if basically every employee chose to participate. Going forward, if the app is successful, this would become part of the interfund charge rather than this be a continual expense out of reserves. It would be part of day-to-day operations. So ongoing, that if everyone participated, that'd be about $13,000. This year, there's a little bit of an implementation fee. That takes our budget from 57,000 up to 71,000, but 14,000 are out of reserves. So it wouldn't affect the interfund in this area.
Councilmember Nichols?
So what does this app do?
So we've been looking at apps for years. Wellness has been building reserves for years in the hopes that would need to build one or buy one. Obviously, there's been a lot of evolution in this area. We're looking at an app called Wellable, which would integrate with most of your smart devices to automatically submit your steps to all of the challenges would run through there. You could just log in from the app. The reason we have chosen Wellable, and AJ has suffered through this with me, I think 3 years in a row, they have nutritional counseling, they have one-on-one coaching with like experts in different areas. There's a recipe section that you can put in like dietary restrictions, and it shows you recipe options and builds a grocery list. And it has educational videos, whether you want to work on mental health issues or physical fitness issues. It gives you different categories of workouts that you can access from your phone or from a computer. And employees' information is confidential in that. We don't see what they're doing. We just see when they earn points.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Cheatham?
If I could follow up on that, this would then be available to employees who are in the health insurance program
Yes.
only?
Yes. If you chose to opt in a spouse, we would have a way during open enrollment, you could pay for your spouse at one time $35 or however much it is for the year, and then they would have access to the same materials.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Mangum?
Having that app, does it help us in any costs with our insurance, health insurance costs or rates?
Hopefully a little bit. I mean, if your employees are healthier, obviously they're going to incur less healthcare expenses. But like we kind of talked about what you guys have got going on right now with large claimants and things, it's not going to curve that. I mean, the things you've got going on, there's no wellness plan that's going to fix that, to be honest with you.
That's encouraging.
Hey, we're doing our best.
Cloud out there. Other questions, Councilmember Mangum?
In your opinion, and you've talked to other people about it, what would be the benefit to us adding this to what we're doing?
So it's interesting because the wellness program is very successful and built a great one. I'm trying not to burn it to the ground as I take it over. The biggest thing is it's hard to get employees to engage who are already living an active, fit lifestyle. It's hard to get them engaged in the program because they don't feel it's geared towards them. So we're trying to expand our program to allow more people. A lot of people wear Fitbits or Apple Watches or wearable devices that is automatically tracking this information. This will automatically give them the points to allow them participate. Many of our field employees don't sit at a computer 9 hours a day, but they do get on their smartphone occasionally. So they would still be able to participate because they could log in on the app in 5 minutes rather than going and sitting down at a desktop. The access to the one-on-one coaching is a big selling point for me. That is one thing I couldn't test with the test program that I currently have on my phone, but I can see how it works and I can see the different specialties. And I think it would really expand what people have access to. They're able to go in and pick a time slot with a specific coach based on what their credentials are, and they can book those out for months in advance to have like a weekly or a monthly meeting to follow up on their goals and progress.
Follow up if I can.
Yep.
Have you seen an increase in participation in the wellness program?
We remain pretty much steady at where we're at. There's very little ebb and flow in that. Occasionally, I'll throw down with the department heads a little and be like, hey, and kind of get them competing. But we kind of have the same number of participants regardless of what our head count does.
Follow up on that. Can you quantify that? Like how many employees participate or a percentage of total employees? Or?
So I would have to kind of break it down by item. For example, we're in the walking challenge. Shame on any of you that didn't participate. We have about 200 people enroll in that. So we have roughly 500 people eligible for the plan. We usually see between 180 and last year I think we hit an all-time high of like 240 or 250. But we hold at about 200 people are participating. And it's pretty active participation. You do, some people drop off, but even if they only submit once a week or something, they're part of the team. They get to be put into the drawings. They get those points on their wellness worksheet if they submit that. And it just moves a lot of this digital to make it more accessible to people. It's hard because we will go out into departments, but then I have 2 HR people out in departments at 6:30 or 7 in the morning when they're opening to try to talk to them when they just want to get out and get in their work done in the field. This gives them everything just accessible. So we're hoping we will drive participation up through this method. I don't know if that will be successful.
Question from Council Member Paulson and then Council Member Cheatham.
2 questions. Did you say you'd been saving into reserves for this?
Well, we didn't know if we'd have to build an app or if we would buy an app. This is a per employee per month charge for participants. If they haven't been active in 30 days, we can drop them off, so we're no longer paying for them. If they get back into it, then they pop back on as a cost for us. The other reserves is for when we kind of do big capital projects, which I know sounds ridiculous, but if we were ever to like remodel City Hall, we could talk about maybe locker rooms for general employees to use. We've bought treadmills with money in the past. We've funded items like that.
And then my other question, you've been saying points. What do you get with these points?
So twice a year, employees submit what's called a wellness worksheet, where they take all the points they've earned through their health and wellness activities and programs that we offer, and then you earn VIBA dollars that get deposited into your account.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Cheatham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is there any way to track use of an app like this or this program back toward health claims? Do the people who participate tend to be healthier?
So there's a lot of controversy out there on that, and at one time they did do a little bit of that. Pacific Source has their own kind of system set up, and they used Virgin Health for a long time, and they found no benefit with it. And so what they did is they actually pulled the plug on it because people weren't engaging. The thing is it starts from the top down. I have groups, similar industries, and the ones where, you know, your administration and stuff buys into it and they're aggressive with it and they participate and they use it, you do see a benefit to it. I mean, it helps morale quite a bit. I think that's probably the biggest benefit, in my opinion, honestly, is the morale benefit. But then I have other ones that are in the same industry that you don't get the buy-in from the administration, the staff and that, and there's no utilization. I can have even like cities just down the road from each other. Like this one honestly has the most robust and most participated in health plan of all my groups, to be honest with you. So I mean, if anyone was gonna actually do it, it would be you guys, in my opinion, would go out and do this and give this a run, because I think your employees would actually utilize it and it wouldn't be wasted money. Whereas I do have some other groups where I think it'd be wasted because we don't get the same kind of buy-in.
Councilmember Mangum and then Council President Lyric.
Heather, you had said this would be a cost per person who enrolls or uses. So that 14,000, is that based upon the number of people who are currently in the wellness program, or?
No, I kind of took like our extreme of what it would be. We anticipate it will be less than this based on enrollment, but I don't want to have to come back and ask mid-year for a budget amendment. So I asked to pull what I think will be our max amount, and then what I don't spend will roll back into our reserves, which is where we pulled the money from.
So that would be the startup cost?
And for fiscal year 26
for the
as a
whole year? Okay. So you had said if somebody just stopped using it for 30 days, we pull them off. Does that kick out a rebate to us, or what is it?
It would reduce my costs for the next month.
Oh, okay, so it's a monthly subscription deal. Okay.
Okay, Council President Lyric.
I was trying to think how I wanted to say this, but it's really more of a comment on participation and just the value of doing it. I've been impressed since I've been on the council, and way back when we started the walking challenge, for example, like how many people participated in that, even including mayor and council, and just the benefit to morale that you mentioned. I mean, and I think that's a huge benefit that also then drives other benefits, like, you know, if people are happier in their job, then maybe they're going to participate more, and then they're going to be more well, if that's a term. But I think these things sort of feed off of each other. But I've just been very impressed with this, our employee participation in these programs. Even one of the most difficult ones, the sugar or the no sugar challenge, things like that, and everybody sort of comes together
To commiserate.
to commiserate and talk about how difficult it is, but it really brings people together in a way. And so I think there is benefit in doing these things, and like I said, maybe we can see a morale benefit, but then there's probably other benefits that are driven by that are maybe less tangible or quantifiable, but just the benefit that we see in bringing people together. I'm amazed even, and I guess this is sort of health and wellness, but the health fair too, like the number of employees that we see at the health fair and participating in that is just phenomenal. So it's really nice to hear your comment that if it was going to happen anywhere, it'd be here, like to hear how well we do with that, because that's what I've witnessed, and I think it's a good thing.
Heather and her staff do an amazing job. Like I said, the best of all our groups by far.
That's good.
I think about that, and I can only imagine what our experience rating would be without this.
Right.
And I mean, this is one of those things that it's tough to put a dollar amount on what we're saving, because we don't know what we're saving
Yeah, exactly.
on
That's
something
just
like
it.
this. And so I often think about, my gosh, if we didn't have something like this, you imagine where we would be? And so,
Right.
anyway, questions, council? Okay. And super, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, before they go. could I
Yeah,
ask
but
you a
yeah,
question?
absolutely, yeah.
I guess this is for AJ. Why are our claims so high? I had someone tell me that it's because of the average age of our employees. Do you see that?
That's part of it. I mean, you don't have turnover, right? Like, your employees are just getting older every year, and then at some point, those are gonna retire, and that kind of resets a little bit. It'd probably be better if you wanted to maybe sit down one-on-one, and we can go through the experience, and we can kind of break down exactly what's going on. In a public forum like this, I don't feel comfortable diving into the details like that, because, I mean, there's a lot of situations that are personal and private, and, HIPAA, obviously. But even just to talk in generalities, I'd be afraid, who would hear and who would know. But I'd love to sit down. If council ever wanted to, you're always welcome to. I can come here, or we can come to my office, whatever you want to do. I'd be willing to go through that experience with you and break that down and show you where we would be. And to Councilmember Nichols' point, I could talk about, also what the renewal would have been and that kind of thing as well. So I'm happy to do that whenever you'd like.
I guess the second follow-up to that is, what can we do?
That's the thing, and that's what we sit down with HR, and, Heather and I have talked about this numerous times. We go through the large claimant listing. Is there anything we could have done to prevent any of these situations? And our top 10 large claimants, every time we've gone through, we couldn't do anything. There's nothing that we could have done for those top 10 large claimants. Those are the ones that are driving your cost right there. Your large claimants are driving, you've got, I don't know, like 67, 68 people, something like that, that's driving 67% of your costs. I mean, what do you do with that? I mean, unfortunately, that's the healthcare crisis that we're in. But I'd be happy to sit down and dive into that data with you anytime if you'd like.
So, well, we've got a lot of employees. You've got a lot of other clients.
Yep.
Are our claims out of line for the size of the employee number that we have?
Yeah, you are a little high, honestly. You're running a little hotter than most, but you'll see with groups, it kind of ebbs and flows a little bit. And you guys have a little bit too, but you guys have really just this last 2 years, it's been rough. It's been really rough, to be honest with you. And Heather and I were talking earlier, it's kind of on fire right now, to be honest with you.
Thank you.
But AJ, you said earlier you had said most of these claims are things you just can't predict and you
You
really
can't predict or prevent. That's
Or
the thing.
prevent
Yeah,
them.
I mean,
It's
you
just-
know, you've got genetic factors and things there. I mean, a preemie baby. How do you prevent a preemie baby? You know, I mean, or a cancer. We're doing the annual screenings every year. They're going and getting their screenings. How do you prevent that? I mean, some things just kind of happen. You know, a back surgery. You know, I mean, how do you prevent that? I mean, obviously, if they're in good shape, they exercise and all those kind of things. But even still, those kinds of things can happen to healthy people too. And so that's, you know, as we go through those lists, honestly, the last couple of years, there isn't really much that I feel like we could have prevented unless you feel different.
And we're at or above the state average for like preventative care, screen,
Oh, yeah.
scanning. We're
Yep.
usually well above the state average. We just running hot.
Well, with our health fair and stuff, we actually catch quite a few of the cancer things
Oh, absolutely.
early,
Yeah.
which is a huge savings.
Or pre-diabetes,
Pre-diabetes, things like that. We actually do catch that. And so those are the dollars we don't know what we're not spending is from that kind of a thing. And so, yeah, that's a hard one to wrap your mind around and figure out how to prevent some of that stuff, so.
If you want to do an executive session sometime or that, we could do that too and go through the claims experience. I've done that before as well. So I'd be happy to do that if you ever wanted to.
Okay. All right. Council, any other questions? All right, council, thank you very much. That was a pretty heavy lift this morning, and I'm a little surprised that we're done early, so thank you for your work today, and with that, we are adjourned.